Chapter 448. Xiao Chun did not panic in the slightest when facing Hua Zhe, whose strength and attack power surpassed his. This was because after the previous battle, Xiao Chun clearly felt that Hua Zhe was inferior to him in terms of sword and saber techniques. He said that he knew a saber cultivator, but compared to him, Hua Zhe's saber techniques were simply too weak. Needless to say, the person that Xiao Chun was talking about was his elder brother, Chunling. It was not an exaggeration at all. Hua Zhe's saber techniques were indeed far inferior to Chunling's. It was also because of this that Xiao Chun had the confidence to fight with Hua Zhe in close combat. After all, close combat was not just a competition of strength. It also had extremely strict requirements for one's understanding of saber and sword techniques. As Xiao Chen's voice fell, the long sword in Xiao Chen's hand fiercely swung at an extremely tricky angle. The speed was also ridiculously fast. In an instant, Hua Zhe's expression changed. In just the blink of an eye, Xiao Chen's attack had increased by so much. Hua Zhe did not dare to hesitate at all. He leaned to the side and narrowly dodged Xiao Chen's sword. However, just as Hua Zhe successfully dodged, Xiao Chen's second move came as expected. The Scarlet Edge sword fiercely rose from below. This sword made Hua Zhe break out in cold sweat. He did not dare to hesitate and immediately retreated. Previously, Hua Zhe had the upper hand. Who would have thought that in just the blink of an eye, Xiao Chun would actually force Hua Zhe to retreat with two swords? This was not a suppression of strength or attack power. In terms of strength and attack power, Xiao Chun had not changed much compared to before. The only reason he could do this was because Xiao Chen's understanding of sword principles was far superior to Hua Zhe's. What mattered in close combat was one's own comprehension. Regardless of whether it was the way of the blade or the way of the sword, there were differences in strength. Take Xiao Chun, for example. Although he was not yet 30 years old, his comprehension of the way of the sword was already extremely high. He wielded the long sword in his hand as if it was his own arm. His sword moves seemed to have no pattern, but every move he made was extremely tricky, making him impossible to guard against. Hua Zhe had not expected Xiao Chun to change so much and was forced to retreat. Xiao Chun naturally would not let such a good opportunity go to waste. He leaped up and stuck to Hua Zhe like a maggot attached to a bone. Seeing that Xiao Chun had gained the upper hand in an instant and the entire battle situation had been reversed in an instant, Gu Qi, who was on the high platform, revealed a faint smile. As a semi-sage expert, his eyesight was naturally shrewd. He couldn't help but praise in his heart. This boy's understanding of sword principles has already reached an extremely profound level. It's rare, really rare. Hua Zhe was forced to retreat by Xiao Chun. For the first time, a trace of anger appeared on his face. He wanted to counterattack, but Xiao Chun's sword was like a big net. Hua Zhe could not find a point to counterattack at all. Even defending was extremely difficult. There was no chance for him to counterattack at all. This was the suppression of sword principles. The anger in Hua Zhe's heart grew stronger. He was also very clear in his heart that if he wanted to break out of this predicament, he could only make up for it with absolute strength under the circumstance that his understanding of saber principles was inferior to Xiao Chen's. Thinking of this, Hua Zhe shouted coldly, "You forced me to do this." Along with his voice, the scorching sun behind Hua Zhe gradually dissipated. However, Hua Zhe's aura did not weaken at all. On the contrary, it became even stronger. Secret technique. Sensing the change in Hua Zhe, Xiao Chun murmured softly. He could tell at a glance that Hua Zhe had used a secret technique. Xiao Chun's guess was right. Hua Zhe had indeed used a secret technique. Under the enhancement of the secret technique, his cultivation base, which was originally at the beginner Dao querying realm, rushed to the lesser Dao querying realm, and then reached the greater Dao querying realm before gradually stopping. Blazing heart. Hua Zhe's aura was extremely terrifying at this moment. He then lashed out with his sword, forcing Xiao Chun to back off with sheer force. Xiao Chun was shocked to see that Hua Zhe was able to force him back with sheer force. One shouldn't underestimate the increase of 2 minor levels. For King Jiao, every little bit of improvement with a huge boost to one's battle prowess. The current Hua Zei, who had used his secret technique, was definitely on a completely different level compared to before. After forcing Xiao Chan back with a slash, Hua Zei's eyes were overflowing with killing intent. Since you're courting death, don't blame me. With the secret technique, Hua Zei thought that he could completely crush Xiao Chun. However, just as he finished speaking, Xiao Chen's aura suddenly soared. Facing Hua Zei, who had used a secret technique, Xiao Chen naturally had no other choice but to use the Dragon Transformation secret technique. His aura instantly broke through the beginner Dao querying realm, and only gradually stabilized after reaching the greater Dao querying realm. Originally, when Xiao Chun was in the Sky Human realm, the Dragon Transformation could directly raise his cultivation base by a large level. However, after breaking through to the Dao querying realm, as his cultivation base increased, the effect of the Dragon Transformation was clearly not as strong as before. After all, the higher one's cultivation base, the harder it was to raise it. As such, the effect of the secret technique would also weaken until it completely lost its effect. Seeing that Xiao Chen's cultivation base had also risen from the beginner Dao querying realm to the greater Dao querying realm, the cold smile on Hua Zei's face instantly froze. Secret technique. Xiao Chen had also used a secret technique. Furthermore, the secret technique that Xiao Chen had mastered was not any weaker than the secret technique that Hua Zei had mastered. I'm afraid it's not realistic to think that you can crush me with a secret technique. After using the Dragon Transformation, Xiao Chen looked at Hua Zei with a cold smile. Hua Zei gritted his teeth. Up until now, he had been defeated repeatedly. Such an encounter made Hua Zei furious. With a furious roar, Hua Zei raised his saber and slashed downwards. A terrifying saber radiance slashed towards Xiao Chun. Facing Hua Zei's attack, Xiao Chun pointed his finger and used the Tai sword finger. The two collided, but neither could do anything to the other. After successfully blocking Hua Zei's attack, Xiao Chun took the initiative to move forward. Then, the two of them engaged in an intense battle once again. Seeing the two of them engaged in an intense battle, everyone present was shocked. Xiao Chun and Hua Zei's true cultivation bases were only at the beginner Dao querying realm. However, after using a secret technique, their cultivation bases had risen all the way to the greater Dao querying realm. Furthermore, from their battle, it was not difficult to determine that their strength was no longer comparable to that of an ordinary greater Dao querying realm ancient martial art practitioner. It was simply unimaginable for a beginner Dao querying realm cultivator to possess the strength of a greater Dao querying realm expert. Even the emperor of the Tianlang Empire could not help but exclaim in admiration. This is the pinnacle battle of the younger generation in the Danyang region. Hua Zei lives up to his reputation as the #1 person among the younger generation in the Danyang region. As for this kid called Wang Huan, he is also extraordinary. He can be said to have shocked the world with a single brilliant feat. Chapter 449. With the help of the secret technique, Xiao Chun and Hua Zei's strength was no weaker than an ordinary Dao querying realm martial artist at the great perfection. Figures crisscrossed in the arena. Terrifying shockwaves continued to spread in all directions. The sound of swords clashing was endless. They no longer held back. All kinds of martial arts techniques were used. Up until now, both Hua Zei and Xiao Chun had many wounds on their bodies. Chao He's face was filled with disbelief as she watched the intense battle on the arena. This was the final battle of this grand meeting between the two sects, and it was also the battle that would determine the outcome. She stared blankly at the arena as she involuntarily muttered to herself. Junior brother Wang Huan can actually fight with Hua Zei to this extent. Chao He was very clear about who Wang Huan was. However, such a person was actually able to fight evenly with Hua Zei. One should know that Hua Zei was publicly acknowledged as the #1 person among the younger generation in Danyang County. Even Gu Lingyao was suppressed by him. In the face of Chao He's shock, Gu Lingyao, who was standing to the side, had a contemplative look on her face. She had felt that Xiao Chun was very strong before, but to be honest, she did not expect Xiao Chen's strength to be so strong. She had fought with Hua Ze many times and knew how strong Hua Ze was. However, even so, Xiao Chun did not show any signs of defeat. The two of them exchanged blows, and it was obvious that they were evenly matched. It was difficult to determine the winner. They were amazed by the strength that Xiao Chun displayed. Of course, it was not only Gu Lingyao and Chao He. Everyone else present had the same thought. Hua Ze was already famous, so it was normal for him to have such strength. However, Xiao Chun was a completely unknown kid. However, he had the strength to fight against Hua Ze. As time passed, the battle between the two of them became more and more intense. After a long battle, Hua Ze was both shocked and frightened. Facing Xiao Chen's unpredictable swordsmanship, Hua Ze was under a lot of pressure. If he was careless, he could be seriously injured by Xiao Chen's sword. Hua Ze no longer had the slightest bit of contempt. He could not understand when such a person had appeared in the Tianqi sect. He had never heard of him before. Hua Ze had a thorough understanding of Xiao Chen's strength. At the same time, Xiao Chun secretly sighed. Although this Hua Ze wasn't a good person, his strength was indisputable. He was almost on par with Gudu Wuya. Of course, this was before. After coming to the Sky River continent, Gudu Wuya and the others certainly wouldn't stay in the same place. Their strength was obviously growing rapidly, but in any case, this Hua Ze was indeed very strong. There was no doubt about it. They had been fighting fiercely for an entire 2 hours. In such an intense battle, the two of them had even used their secret techniques. As a result, their energy consumption was naturally enormous. A trace of impatience gradually grew in his heart. He slashed out fiercely. Seeing this, Xiao Chun raised his sword to block. Hua Ze wanted to end the battle as soon as possible, so under this slash, it could be said that he had given up defending. At the same time, after Xiao Chun successfully blocked the attack, a smile appeared on his face. "You are too impatient." Xiao Chun already knew that Hua Ze was getting impatient. So when Hua Ze made that move, Xiao Chun already knew that victory was in his hands. His own attack couldn't cause any harm to Xiao Chun, and he had given up defending. In front of Xiao Chun, Hua Ze was naturally wide open. As soon as his voice fell, without waiting for Hua Ze's reply, Xiao Chun pointed his finger and instantly used the Ganjiang sword finger. A blood-red sword light flashed and shot towards Hua Ze like lightning. In the face of Xiao Chun's attack, Hua Ze's expression changed drastically. However, it was already too late. Hua Ze could only try his best to avoid his vital parts. At such a close distance, it was very difficult to completely defend and avoid the attack of the Ganjiang sword finger. Hence, Hua Ze could only choose to avoid his vital parts. Hua Ze forcefully dodged to the side. The Ganjiang sword finger instantly broke through Hua Ze's chest and avoided his vital parts. However, he was still seriously injured. The Taoist master was directly sent flying. He then fell heavily to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. He struggled to stand up. However, at this moment, a long sword was placed horizontally on Hua Ze's neck. At the same time, Xiao Chun looked down at Hua Ze and said, "You have lost." Xiao Chun's long sword was already placed horizontally on Hua Ze's neck. As long as he moved forward a little, Hua Ze's head would fall to the ground. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Hua Ze's expression turned ugly. However, in his heart, he knew that he had indeed lost. Everything had happened too quickly. Xiao Chun had caught Hua Ze's mistake and caught up with him. Hua Ze had lost in an instant. Looking at Xiao Chun standing proudly with his sword in the ring, everyone present was stunned. He had won. Hua Ze, who was known as the #1 person among the younger generation in Danyang County, had actually lost. He had lost to an unknown disciple of the Tianqi sect. Just as the winner was decided between Xiao Chun and Hua Ze, the talisman array around the ring slowly dissipated. At the same time, Gu Qi, who was on the high platform, looked at the Qingyang sect master with a smile and said, "Brother Hua, it seems that our Tianqi sect has won this time." Hearing Gu Qi's words, the Qingyang sect master said in a low voice, "Our skills are inferior. Brother Gu, you can choose it will from the 10 spiritual stone veins. Xiao Chun had defeated Hua Ze. As such, the Tianqi sect had also won 3 out of 5 battles and had successfully won this year's 2-sect grand tournament. Gu Qi was also the first to choose from the 10 spiritual stone veins in the hands of the 2 sections. After he had chosen, the remaining 4 veins belonged to the Qingyang sect. The Qingyang sect master did not expect to lose at all. Moreover, it was Hua Ze. Naturally, it was difficult for him to accept such an outcome. As soon as he finished speaking, he looked indifferently at Xiao Chun in the ring below. He was silent, and nobody knew what he was thinking. The 5 battles had finally ended successfully. However, the 2-sect grand tournament had not been forgotten. Later, the Tianling Empire would hold a grand banquet, and the 2 sects would be invited to attend. After obtaining victory, Xiao Chun and the others did not need to worry about the following matters. They came to the resting area, specially prepared for everyone by the imperial family. There was still some time before the banquet began. After the battle, Xiao Chun and the others had consumed a lot of energy and needed to recuperate. At the same time, they also needed to change their clothes and wash the bloodstains on them. There were special palace maids in charge of serving Xiao Chun and the others. After taking a comfortable bath and changing into a clean set of clothes, Xiao Chun's injuries had stabilized with the help of healing elixirs. Although he had not recovered yet, as long as he did not fight again, there would not be any major problems. Just as Xiao Chun finished changing, Gu Lingyao, who had also changed into a new set of clothes, skipped over. She looked at Xiao Chun with a bright smile on her face and said, "Junior brother Wang Huan, I really did not expect you to be able to defeat Hua Ze." Chapter 450. At first glance, Gu Lingyao's smile looked very innocent. Coupled with her pure appearance, it would indeed make people think that she was a little girl who had not seen much of the world. However, if one really thought so, one would be gravely mistaken. It was undeniable that Gu Lingyao was young and looked very innocent. However, under this innocent appearance, Gu Lingyao hid a clever heart. This little girl had always been clever and quick-witted. Xiao Chun had already experienced this a long time ago. Therefore, even though Gu Lingyao's smile looked very innocent, Xiao Chun did not believe it at all and said with a fake smile, "Don't worry about it." Xiao Chun said, "That's right. I'm afraid that I'll be the one to lose." "Is that so? Senior brother is really humble. Let's go. The banquet is already prepared." Senior brother Chao, he, and the rest are already waiting outside the courtyard. Gu Lingyao said with a smile as she looked at Xiao Chun with bright eyes. She did not reveal Xiao Chun's identity. However, she was becoming more and more curious about Xiao Chun. She was curious about Xiao Chun's identity, curious about Xiao Chun's appearance, and of course, curious about why Xiao Chun wanted to impersonate Wang Huan. Gu Lingyao did not care about the whereabouts of the real Wang Huan. Furthermore, with Gu Lingyao's intelligence, how could she not guess that since Xiao Chun had appeared here and impersonated her, the real Wang Huan was most likely dead? Together with Gu Lingyao and the rest, the 5 of them quickly arrived at the Great Hall of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's Imperial Palace. The grand meeting of the 2 sects was being held in the Heavenly Wolf Empire this time around. The Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire had naturally spent a lot of money to host a grand banquet to welcome the experts from the 2 sections. The grand hall was already filled with tables, chairs, and food. At the same time, the people from the 2 great sects and the Heavenly Wolf Empire were chatting with each other. Laughter could be heard from time to time. After sizing up the surroundings, Xiao Chun didn't notice Gu Qi and the sect master of the Azure Sun sect. Obviously, the 2 of them hadn't come to participate in the banquet. As for where they'd gone, it wasn't difficult to guess. Obviously, Gu Qi and the sect master of the Azure Sun sect were accompanied by someone else, and it was the Tao Emperor realm experts of the Skywolf Empire. As a half-saint expert, the Emperor of the Celestial Wolf Empire was not on the same level as Gu Qi, because the Emperor of the Celestial Wolf Empire was only at the Tao Master Realm, just like Chu Mu, the Emperor of the Moonless Empire. Above him was the retired Emperor, who was at the Tao King Realm. Therefore, Gu Qi and the sect master of the Qingyang sect could only be accompanied by the retired Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Moreover, it was definitely beneficial for the Heavenly Wolf Empire to establish a good relationship with the two sections. The two sect masters weren't present, but all the elders were present. Just as Xiao Chun was sizing up the surroundings, some of the nobles of the Heavenly Wolf Empire took the initiative to surround him. Xiao Chen's group of 5 were all elite disciples of the Celestial Equals sect, and they would definitely become pillars of support for the Celestial Equals sect in the future. It was even to the extent that it wasn't impossible for them to join the hallowed sect to cultivate. So, they naturally didn't dare slight Xiao Chen's group of 5. A few nobles of the Celestial Wolf Empire led their disciples over to Xiao Chun and looked at Xiao Chun as they spoke with friendly smiles on their faces. Young friend Wang Huan, you're truly a young hero. After this battle, your name will definitely resound throughout Danyang County. They'd already found out about Xiao Chen's identity, so they spoke with extreme enthusiasm as soon as they spoke. When he heard this, Xiao Chen's expression was calm as he replied, "Seniors, you're too kind. Haha, there's no need to be modest. Come, let's have a drink." When he heard Xiao Chen's words, a white-haired old man laughed heartily as he took the initiative to invite Xiao Chen for a drink. This banquet actually didn't have any special meaning. It was nothing more than a chance for both sides to get to know each other and for the Celestial Wolf Empire to do their part as a host. After drinking 4 or 5 cups of wine with the nobles of the Celestial Wolf Empire, they naturally introduced their disciples to Xiao Chun. Based on the combat prowess that Xiao Chun had displayed today, it was obvious that he would achieve great things in the future. Therefore, there was no harm in letting their juniors get to know Xiao Chun now. Xiao Chun wasn't in the mood to talk nonsense with these guys. He only had one goal, and that was the Blood Wolf King. So, while he was chatting with the crowd, Xiao Chun's gaze was always on the Blood Wolf King. In fact, as soon as Xiao Chun entered the hall, he had already seen the Blood Wolf King in a red robe. At this time, he was chatting with an elder of the Qingyang sect. They were drinking and chatting, bursting into laughter from time to time. It seemed that the two were chatting happily. Xiao Chun knew very well that in order to rescue his mother, he had to find a way to sneak into the Blood Wolf Palace. But how? The best way was naturally to befriend the Blood Wolf King and let him personally bring him in. In this way, Xiao Chun would have a way to inquire about his mother's whereabouts and then carry out the rescue operation. He had been thinking about how to get close to the Blood Wolf King. After all, as one of the 4 great princes of the Celestial Wolf Empire, it was obviously impossible for the Blood Wolf King to take the initiative to greet him. In the eyes of the Blood Wolf King, he had a cultivation of the Dao Master Realm and had a large number of troops. In the eyes of the Blood Wolf King, only the elders with real power in the two sects were worthy of his attention. As for a junior like Xiao Chun, although he was talented, he was not worthy of the Blood Wolf King's deliberate befriending. He had to think of a way. Just as Xiao Chun was thinking secretly, Gu Lingyao, who had been observing Xiao Chen's every move, suddenly moved her head close to Xiao Chen's ear and whispered, "Why? Are you very interested in the Blood Wolf King?" It had to be said that Gu Lingyao was indeed smart. She had guessed this just by his subtle movements. Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, Xiao Chen did not know how to answer. After all, he could not tell Gu Lingyao about it. However, Gu Lingyao obviously did not intend to get to the bottom of it. At the same time, Xiao Chun did not know that Gu Lingyao had long known that he was not the real Wang Huan. Therefore, all along, Gu Lingyao had guessed that Xiao Chun must have some purpose to use Wang Huan's identity to sneak into the Tianqi sect. At this time, Xiao Chun had always been very concerned about the Blood Wolf King. How could the intelligent Gu Lingyao not think that the Blood Wolf King must have a direct relationship with Xiao Chen's actions? Therefore, before Xiao Chun could speak, Gu Lingyao whispered, "I can introduce you to the Blood Wolf King." Previously, the Blood Wolf King came to the Tianqi sect a few times. Father did not have time, but I received him a few times. Gu Lingyao and the Blood Wolf King knew each other. Hearing this, Xiao Chun was slightly taken aback, but he quickly understood. Although Gu Lingyao was also a junior, her identity was different. Her father, Gu Lingyao, was a true half-saint expert and the sect master of the Tianqi sect. Therefore, The Blood Wolf King naturally would not treat Gu Lingyao as an ordinary junior when he treated her. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 451. Xiao Chen naturally did not doubt that Gu Lingyao knew the Blood Wolf King. With Gu Lingyao's identity, not to mention the Blood Wolf King, even the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire would not dare to offend her. After all, in the entire Danyang region, anyone with a bit of status knew that Gu Lingyao was Gu Qi's treasure and he only had one daughter. Therefore, Gu Lingyao could definitely be said to be Gu Qi's reverse scale. The only daughter of a half-saint expert, such an identity was indeed enough to do whatever she wanted in Danyang County. Suddenly mentioning that she knew the Blood Wolf King, Gu Lingyao continued. You want to get to know the Blood Wolf King? I can introduce you. Before Xiao Chen could speak, Gu Lingyao took the initiative to speak. Hearing this, Xiao Chen was stunned at first, but he soon realized that something was wrong. Things were a little strange. Why would Gu Lingyao take the initiative to help him get to know the Blood Wolf King? Moreover, his current identity was Wang Huan, and Wang Huan's grandfather was the great elder of the Tianqi sect, a Dao Emperor realm expert. In this way, it was completely no problem to use Wang Huan's identity to get close to the Blood Wolf King. Of course, Wang Huan's identity was definitely not as useful as Gu Lingyao's, but it did not matter. Gu Lingyao obviously did not give Xiao Chen time to think. She took the initiative to grab Xiao Chen's wrist and almost pulled Xiao Chen towards the Blood Wolf King. The Blood Wolf King, who was originally chatting with the Qingyang sect elder, saw Gu Lingyao take the initiative to walk towards him, and a trace of doubt unconsciously flashed in his eyes. However, he soon revealed a warm smile. After exchanging a few words with the Qingyang sect elder, he turned around and took the initiative to greet her. Miss Gu. He took the initiative to greet Gu Lingyao in an extremely warm manner. Hearing the Blood Wolf King's words, Gu Lingyao smiled slightly and turned to look at Xiao Chen. Seeing that Xiao Chen's expression was normal, Gu Lingyao smiled and said, Your Highness, you're too polite. I haven't had a drink with you today. The last time you went to the Tianqi sect, my father kept praising you. Gu Lingyao's words were very polite, but the Blood Wolf King was obviously surprised. Sect Master actually praised me? Although he knew that Gu was talking nonsense, the Blood Wolf King could not help but be secretly delighted to hear it. After all, Gu was a half-saint expert. How could he not be happy to be praised by a half-saint expert? Immediately, the Blood Wolf King became even more enthusiastic as he said, Miss Gu is too kind. How could I possibly catch the sect leader's eye? In front of Gu Lingyao, the Blood Wolf King naturally did not dare to be arrogant. After some simple pleasantries, Gu Lingyao introduced Xiao Chen to the Blood Wolf King. Your Highness, Lingyao's senior brother is Wang Huan. His grandfather is the great elder of our Tianqi sect. The Blood Wolf King should know Elder Wang, right? Upon hearing that Xiao Chen was actually the great elder's grandson, the Blood Wolf King smiled kindly. I've naturally heard of Elder Wang's name. Young Master Wang's performance today has indeed opened my eyes. You're indeed a young hero. I admire you. Although the great elder's cultivation was not as high as Gu Qi's, the Blood Wolf King obviously would not brush him off. Hearing the Blood Wolf King's words, Xiao Chen smiled and said, Your Highness is too kind. After a seemingly lively conversation, the three of them raised their cups and drank together. Gently putting down the wine cup in his hand, Gu Lingyao said with an innocent face, I've long heard that Your Highness is an elegant person. It's said that the scenery in Your Highness's mansion is incomparable to the palace. To be honest, I really want to visit Your Highness's mansion. Gu Lingyao actually took the initiative to suggest going to the Blood Wolf King's mansion. Hearing this, the Blood Wolf King was stunned. Not only that, but Xiao Chen also frowned. An inexplicable look flashed across his eyes as if he had thought of something. Obviously, neither the Blood Wolf King nor Xiao Chen expected Gu Lingyao to make such a request. However, as the Blood Wolf King, he naturally would not reject Gu Lingyao's request. Furthermore, if he could build a good relationship with Gu Lingyao, The Blood Wolf King clearly knew what it meant. Therefore, it was only a moment of bewilderment before the Blood Wolf King laughed out loud. Haha, since Miss Gu is interested, this king will welcome you with open arms tomorrow. I only hope that Miss Gu won't mind the loneliness. The Blood Wolf King readily agreed. This was normal. If it was someone else who made such a request, the Blood Wolf King might have rejected it. However, since it was Gu Lingyao, the Blood Wolf King naturally would not reject her. Hearing the Blood Wolf King's nod, Gu Lingyao smiled and said, "Then I will disturb your highness tomorrow. Since this is the case, I will not disturb your highness any further. Since your highness still has many old friends present today, I will take my leave. Miss Gu, take care. This king will welcome Miss Gu tomorrow." Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, the Blood Wolf King said, he indeed had many old friends to entertain. Just because of one sentence, Gu Lingyao became Xiao Chun and solved the problem of how to enter the Blood Wolf Palace. However, Xiao Chun was not happy at all. This was because at this moment, Xiao Chun was certain that his identity had been exposed. Gu Lingyao was already in such a state. If Xiao Chun did not notice anything, then he would be too stupid. First of all, if Gu Lingyao was certain that he was Wang Huan, she would not have taken the initiative to help him enter the Blood Wolf Palace. There was only one explanation, and that was that Gu Lingyao had seen through his identity. Or perhaps, she had begun to suspect him. Furthermore, considering the various things that Gu Lingyao had done to him, Xiao Qin was certain that Gu Lingyao had guessed his identity. His identity had been exposed. This was definitely a big deal. After all, if his identity was exposed before his mother was rescued, he would be in big trouble. However, what Xiao Chun could not figure out was that since Gu Lingyao had seen through his identity, why did he still help him? Shouldn't he have let the experts from the Celestial Equals sect take him down? After all, with Gu Lingyao's intelligence, how could she not know that since he had used Wang Huan's identity to appear here, then the real Wang Huan would not have a good ending? Not only did he not let the experts from the Celestial Equals sect take him down, but he even took the initiative to help him enter the Blood Wolf Palace. Gu Lingyao's actions made Xiao Chun puzzled. His heart was in a mess. Sensing the change in Xiao Chun, Gu Lingyao smiled and thought to herself that he was not stupid. Then, Gu Lingyao took the initiative to pull Xiao Chun out of the hall. The palace was huge. Soon, the two of them arrived at a remote garden. Looking at Xiao Chun, Gu Lingyao said with a smile, "Tell me, who are you? Why are you pretending to be Wang Huan? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 452. This was a very remote and sparsely populated garden with an extremely beautiful environment. However, at this moment, Xiao Chun was not in the mood to appreciate the scenery in the garden at all. Gu Lingyao's words echoed in his ears as he stared at Gu Lingyao, who was still smiling brightly. "Tell me, who are you and why are you pretending to be Wang Huan?" Gu Lingyao's voice echoed in Xiao Chen's ears, but he was still discovered. Now that he thought about it carefully, Gu Lingyao had probably seen through his identity a long time ago. At this moment, Xiao Chen's heart calmed down because Xiao Chun keenly grasped a key point. Since Gu Lingyao had seen through his identity, she did not expose him directly, nor did she let the experts of the Celestial Equals sect take him down. This way, there was still room for negotiation. His mood gradually calmed down. Although Xiao Chun was not yet 30 years old, the things he had experienced were definitely not comparable to ordinary people of his age. Therefore, Xiao Chun knew very well that the more dangerous the situation was, the more he had to remain calm. Once he panicked, he would only be consigned to eternal damnation. Looking at Xiao Chun, who was deep in thought, Gu Lingyao did not urge him. She stared at Xiao Chun with a smile and patiently waited for his answer. After a moment of silence, Xiao Chun quickly smiled at Gu Lingyao and said, "Miss Gu is really smart. However, since you have already seen through my identity, why didn't you send the experts of the Celestial Equals sect to take me down? You even dared to bring me here alone." At this point, Xiao Chun looked around and smiled. It seems that very few people come here. Miss Gu's strength should be inferior to mine, right? There was a faint threat in his words, But after hearing Xiao Chen's words, Gu Lingyao did not change her expression. On the contrary, she replied with a pure smile. But you can't take me down in an instant. Once you do, my father will rush over immediately. At that time, I think you won't be able to escape even if you have wings. She was fearless. Hearing this, Xiao Chun instantly understood that the person who wanted to see through his identity the most was not Gu Lingyao, but his father, Gu Qi. Helplessly shaking his head and smiling bitterly, Xiao Chun did not avoid anything and said softly in front of Gu Lingyao, "It seems that I'm too naive. Trying to deceive a saint-level expert with a mere disguise technique is ridiculous." After saying that, without waiting for Gu Lingyao's answer, Xiao Chun looked directly at her, the smile on his face slowly, and he said very seriously, "All right, since you have seen through my identity, let's talk openly and honestly." As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Chun took out a handkerchief. He then took out a bottle of medicine and dripped it onto the handkerchief. He then used the handkerchief to wipe his face. The potion was specially used to cleanse the disguise technique. With a wipe, the disguise technique would disappear instantly. Seeing that Xiao Chun had removed his disguise, Gu Lingyao couldn't help but feel curious. From the beginning, she had been looking forward to the identity of the person who impersonated Wang Huan. What kind of appearance did he have? At the same time, he was so powerful. What exactly was he, anyway? No matter what, Gu Lingyao had always been very interested in Xiao Chun. Just as Gu Lingyao was secretly looking forward to it, Xiao Chun removed his disguise. The handkerchief in his hand slowly moved away from his face. At the same time, Xiao Chen's original appearance appeared before Gu Lingyao's eyes. Previously, Gu Lingyao had guessed countless times what Xiao Chen's true appearance looked like. Now that she finally saw it with her own eyes, she was completely stunned. However, perhaps it should be said that she was attracted to it. Wang Huan's appearance wasn't bad, and he could be considered as an elegant young master. However, compared to Xiao Chun, he was nothing. Especially after removing his disguise, Xiao Chun unconsciously exuded an aura that attracted Gu Lingyao even more. After a long while, Gu Lingyao slowly returned to her senses. At this moment, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "Let's get to know each other again. My name is Xiao Chun, and I'm from the Moonless Empire." "You're from the Moonless Empire?" Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Gu Lingyao asked doubtfully. "That's right. This time, I had no choice but to impersonate Wang Huan," Xiao Chen said. "Oh, no choice? Why?" "Miss Gu, don't be anxious. Before talking about my own matters, shouldn't Miss Gu talk about yourself first? After all, I've already shown you enough sincerity, but Miss Gu doesn't seem to have anything to say." Before figuring out what Gu Lingyao wanted, Xiao Chun naturally wouldn't reveal any information about his mother. After all, this was an important matter. Since Gu Lingyao had seen through his identity but didn't expose him, Xiao Chun was very curious about what Gu Lingyao wanted. Upon hearing this, Gu Lingyao didn't refuse. In her opinion, since Xiao Chun had revealed his true appearance, he had indeed shown enough sincerity. Therefore, Gu Lingyao didn't hesitate and told him about her father's intentions. In fact, it was also Gu Lingyao's idea to take the initiative to make things clear tonight. During the day, Xiao Chun displayed absolute strength and defeated Hua Ze. This made Gu Qi think highly of Xiao Chun in his heart. Therefore, in Gu Qi's opinion, some things could be made clear. Moreover, Gu Qi thought highly of Xiao Chun. At the same time, Tianqi sect urgently needed someone like Xiao Chun because the glory sect election was about to begin. Gu Lingyao looked at Xiao Chun with pure eyes and said slowly, "Actually, from the first time he saw you, Father already knew that you weren't Wang Huan. However, Father didn't point it out because he saw that you were extraordinary. Therefore, Father wants you to enter Tianqi sect." Gu Lingyao's words were very direct. However, Xiao Chun was stunned when he heard this. Then, he asked doubtfully, "You want me to enter Tianqi sect? Are you kidding? Since I can stand here using Wang Huan's identity, both you and your father should have guessed Wang Huan's fate, right?" He didn't expect Gu Qi to want him to enter Tianqi sect. This was simply unexpected. One must know that Gu Qi was a sage-to-be expert. How could he be a muddle-headed person? Now that he could appear here using Wang Huan's identity, anyone could guess Wang Huan's fate. Wang Huan was the grandson of the Great Elder. If Gu Qi wanted him to enter Tianqi's sect, wouldn't he be forcing the Great Elder to his death? Not only did Gu Qi not capture the murderer of his grandson, but he even wanted him to enter Tianqi's sect. If the Great Elder knew about this, wouldn't he go crazy? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 453. She didn't understand what Gu Qi's motive was. Since he could become the Great Elder, Wang Huan's grandfather was in existence above everyone else in the Tianqi sect. Gu Qi's actions clearly didn't care about the Great Elder's feelings at all. The smile on Gu Lingyao's face slowly faded in the face of Xiao Qin's questioning, and her tone gradually turned cold. I believe you have more or less understood the situation of the Tianqi sect during this period of time. In the past 10 years, no, it should be 20 years. The Tianqi sect situation has been getting worse and worse. Compared to the Qingyang sect, it's getting weaker. Of course, this weakness doesn't refer to the experts of the older generation from both sides, but to the younger disciples. You should have seen what happened today. During the two sects' grand meeting, each side sent 5 disciples to fight. The 5 disciples from the Qingyang sect were all monarchs, while all the younger disciples of the Tianqi sect added together couldn't even gather 5 monarchs. Do you know why? Gu Lingyao said slowly. Xiao Qin had already guessed a little when she heard that. After glancing at Xiao Qin, Gu Lingyao also believed that Xiao Qin had already guessed it given her wisdom. However, she still directly told Xiao Qin the answer. The reason is the battle between the Great Elder and the Second Elder. In the past 20 years, many talented disciples of the Tianqi sect have been killed for unknown reasons. The culprits are the Great Elder and the Second Elder. It wasn't a secret that the Great Elder and the Second Elder were fighting for fame and fortune in the Tianqi sect. Even Xiao Qin had heard a little about it during this period of time. However, she didn't expect that the two of them would actually kill the disciples of the sect. In fact, Gu Lingyao had not finished speaking. Logically speaking, whether it was the first elder or the second elder, since they were both elders of the Tianqi sect, they should not harm their own sect's disciples. However, the two of them had been bribed by the Qingyang sect one after another 20 years ago. Knowing that the battle between the two elders was becoming more and more intense, the Qingyang sect had secretly bribed the two of them. They were willing to help the two of them obtain power in the Tianqi sect. The condition was very simple. The two of them had to secretly help the Qingyang sect eliminate the genius disciples of the Tianqi sect. They knew very well that the development of a sect did not depend on the experts of the older generation, but on the younger generation. Therefore, the Qingyang sect had used the first elder and second elder to assassinate many disciples of the Tianqi sect over the past 20 years. It was laughable that these two idiots did not realize that this was the Qingyang sect scheme to bribe the two of them at the same time. However, this was not their intention. Therefore, the two of them actually agreed to the Qingyang sect request and began to secretly help them kill the disciples of the Tianqi sect. The first elder didn't know that the Qingyang sect had bribed the second elder while he was bribed. At the same time, the second elder didn't know that the Qingyang sect had bribed the first elder. As a result, these two idiots became the targets of the Qingyang sect. They secretly assisted the Qingyang sect and killed many disciples of the Tianqi sect. It was precisely because of their actions that Gu Qi had already made up his mind to eliminate the two of them after learning about it. Therefore, even though Xiao Qin had killed Wang Huan, it was nothing to Gu Qi because the first elder and second elder had already been sentenced to death by Gu Qi. Therefore, Xiao Qin did not have to worry about the first elder at all after joining the Tianqi sect, because Xiao Qin might never see the first elder again. The actions of the two elders had completely infuriated Gu Qi. After hearing Gu Lingyao's words, Xiao Qin chose to believe him for the time being and immediately asked, "All right, let's say I believe you for the time being. However, since your father wants me to join the Tianqi sect, he must have a motive. This is the reason why he didn't expose me, right?" "Yes." After hearing Xiao Qin's words, Gu Lingyao nodded without hiding anything. I'd like to hear the details, Xiaochen said. Xiaochen needed to know Gu Qi's true motive so that he could judge whether he could trust Gu Qi or not. At the same time, Xiaochen was also very clear that if he could really get the help of the Tianqi sect, then the matter of rescuing his mother could be said to be in a bag. Gu Qi could even directly ask the Blood Wolf King for his daughter. In the face of Gu Qi's request, the Blood Wolf King would not dare to refuse. Of course, the premise was that Gu Qi must be trustworthy. Faced with Xiaochen's question, Gu Lingyao quickly explained everything to Xiaochen truthfully. Have you heard of the sage sex selection? According to Gu Lingyao's explanation, the reason why Gu Qi wanted Xiaochen to join the Tianqi sect was because of the sage sex selection. To put it bluntly, the sage sex selection was a process for Tianfeng Shengzong to recruit disciples. Of course, this process did not recruit ordinary disciples, but elite disciples or even core disciples. Every 30 years, Tianfeng Shengzong would hold a sage sex selection. Once one passed the sage sex selection, they would directly become a disciple of Tianfeng Shengzong. Moreover, they would not be ordinary disciples, but at the very least, elite disciples. It was even possible for them to become core disciples. It was also because of this that the sage sex selection of Tianfeng Shengzong was extremely sensational every time. Every time the sage sex selection began, all the major sects in the 12 counties under Tianfeng Mansion would sign up for their respective genius disciples. To put it bluntly, Tianfeng Shengzong was the ruler of the entire Tianfeng Mansion. There were true saints in the sect. If one could join the sage sect, it would be greatly beneficial to both the person and the force they belong to. However, it was not so simple to pass the sage sex selection. The elimination rate of the sage sex selection was so high that it was simply shocking. Every time, there would be tens of thousands of people signing up. However, in the end, there would be less than 20 people who would pass in the end. Moreover, the requirements to sign up for the sage sex selection were very high. One had to be below 30 years old and have a cultivation level of Dao Querying Realm. It was because of the high difficulty and some of the rules that Gu Qi wanted Xiaochen to join the Tianqi sect and represent the Tianqi sect in this sage sex selection. After all, in the past 20 years, many of the young disciples of the Tianqi sect, especially the talented ones, had been killed by the Qingyang sect because of the first elder and second elder. This had led to a huge gap in the younger generation of the Tianqi sect. Therefore, there was a greater need for someone to join the Tianfeng Shengzong to cultivate. After all, the development of a force could not be separated from the younger generation. Gu Lingyao told Xiao Chun about Gu Qi's true intentions. Of course, this was also Gu Qi's intention. After saying all this, Gu Lingyao looked at Xiao Chun and said, "How is it? Do you understand now?" Gu Lingyao explained in detail. Hearing this, Xiaochen nodded and said, "I understand. I understand very well. Sage sex selection? So that's how it is." Because Gu Qi wanted him to represent the Tianqi sect in the sage sex selection, Gu Qi did not expose his identity. Of course, there was another reason, which was that the first elder and second elder had already been sentenced to death by Gu Qi. Therefore, Gu Qi naturally would not vent his anger on him because of Wang Huan. Gu Qi might even secretly think that it was a good thing that he had killed Wang Huan. Chapter 454. After hearing Gu Lingyao's explanation, Xiao Chun fell into deep thought. He was considering whether he could trust the Tianqi sect or not. Gu Lingyao didn't urge Xiao Chun. Of course, although she told Xiao Chun the truth, there were still some things that Gu Lingyao didn't mention. Gu Qi had guessed that Xiao Chun wasn't from the Tiana continent. Of course, this was also under Gu Qi's orders. As for why, Gu Lingyao didn't know. After a long while, Xiao Chun finally made his decision. The reason why he thought for so long wasn't because Xiao Chun was indecisive, but because this matter concerned his mother's safety. Xiao Chun couldn't be careless in the slightest. Having made his decision, Xiao Chun looked up at Gu Lingyao and said, "Can I trust you?" "Of course," Gu Lingyao said. "Okay, then I can join the Tianqi sect. But before that, I need the Tianqi sect to help me once, Xiao Chun said directly. Gu Lingyao wasn't surprised to hear Xiao Chen's words. She had already expected it. With a slight smile, Gu Lingyao said, "Is it about you sneaking into the Tianlang Empire?" "Yes. My mother is under house arrest by the Blood Wolf King. I want to save her. If the Tianchi sect is willing to help, then things will be much simpler," Xiao Chun said after hearing Gu Lingyao's words. Xiao Chun didn't have any resistance to joining the Tianchi sect. First of all, as one of the two major sects in Danyang County, the cultivation environment of the Tianchi sect was definitely better than the Royal Academy of the Wuyue Empire. Moreover, the Tianchi sect had Gu Qi, a half-step saint. It could be seen that in terms of cultivation environment, the three great empires couldn't catch up to the two major sections. Moreover, after entering the Tianchi sect, Xiao Chun would have the qualifications to participate in the selection of the sage sects. In this way, he would have the opportunity to enter the Tianfeng Zone. Wasn't this the purpose of Xiao Chun coming to the Tiana continent? In this way, what reason did Xiao Chun have to refuse? He wasn't against joining the Celestial Equal sect. In addition, Xiao Chun thought that if the Celestial Equal sect was really willing to help, then Gu Qi only needed to say a word and the Blood Wolf King would definitely offend them. After all, Gu Qi was a half-saint expert. The Blood Wolf King probably had to give him some face. He already had a plan in mind, but Gu Lingyao soon felt like a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head. Looking at Xiao Chun, Gu Lingyao said, "You want my father to go directly to the Blood Wolf King and ask him for his mother?" Xiao Chun had already told Gu Lingyao the truth about his mother, and Gu Lingyao quickly guessed that Xiao Chun wanted Gu Qi to ask for his mother. Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded. Seeing this, Gu Lingyao smiled bitterly and helplessly. If it were any other time, it would be fine. But now, if you ask my father to ask for her, I'm afraid it will harm your mother instead. What do you mean? It's very simple. At this time, not only is the Celestial Equal sect in the Heavenly Wolf Empire, there is also the Qingyang sect. Just now, you said it yourself that the Blood Wolf King has placed your mother under house arrest. As such, he naturally values your mother very much. If my father asks for her, the Blood Wolf King may be afraid, but will he be willing to obediently release your mother? If it were any other time, the Blood Wolf King might give my father face, but now he definitely won't, because the Qingyang sect is also in the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Think about it. If my father asks for her, but he is unwilling to release her, what will he do? Ask for help from the Qingyang sect. Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, Xiao Chun also quickly realized the problem and said without hesitation. Hearing Xiao Chen's answer, Gu Lingyao also nodded slightly to express his agreement. That's right. When the time comes, the Blood Wolf King will definitely ask the Qingyang sect for help. In this way, the Qingyang sect will definitely come forward to stop him. With the Qingyang sect around, do you think the Blood Wolf King will still give my father face? You should know that the two great sects don't have the final say in Danyang County. Although the two great sects have sage-level experts, the three great empires have millions of troops. The two great sects have more experts than the three great empires, but the three great empires can also use the number of people. With the lives of millions of warriors as the price, they may not be able to kill a sage-level expert, but they can definitely cripple or injure him. Therefore, the three great empires and the two great sects are actually equal. It's impossible to make the Blood Wolf King obediently submit. Therefore, the only way is to rescue him secretly. Gu Lingyao directly rejected Xiao Chen's idea. After her reminder, Xiao Chen also quickly understood that his idea was indeed a little naive. Gu Lingyao was right. The three great empires and the two great sects were equal. In principle, the three great empires were not afraid of the two great sects, but because there was no conflict of interest between the two, no one wanted to provoke the other. They could only rescue him secretly. Hearing this, Xiao Chen nodded slightly. As for Gu Lingyao, she continued to speak. But you can rest assured that with us secretly helping you, the success rate is definitely above 80%. Tomorrow, we will go to the residence of the Blood Wolf King. I will help you delay the Blood Wolf King. At that time, you will find an opportunity to leave and find where your mother is imprisoned. This way, it will be much easier to rescue her." Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, Xiao Chun nodded slightly. With Gu Lingyao delaying the Blood Wolf King, it would be easier for him to carry out the operation. They could be considered to have had a heart-to-heart talk. In the end, Gu Lingyao took the initiative to extend her hand and smiled at Xiao Chun. "I forgot to say earlier, welcome to the Tianqi sect, junior brother Xiao Chun." Looking at Gu Lingyao's pure smile without any impurities, Xiao Chun also extended his hand and gently shook it. He did not expect things to develop into this situation, but overall it was still good. At least he had received help from the Tianqi sect. Furthermore, Gu Qi did not blame him for killing Wang Huan. Once again, he returned to the Tianqi sect's encampment with Wang Huan's identity. After a night of silence, early the next morning, Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao rushed to the Blood Wolf Mansion. They had already discussed with the Blood Wolf King yesterday. Therefore, when Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao arrived at the Blood Wolf Mansion in a carriage, the Blood Wolf King, who received the news, personally went out to welcome them. As one of the 4 great princes of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the Blood Wolf Mansion was indeed magnificent. However, Xiao Chun did not know if it was because of the Blood Wolf King's personality, but before they even entered the Blood Wolf Mansion, he could already feel a murderous aura. The Blood Wolf King quickly walked out of the courtyard with a warm smile on his face. He laughed loudly and said, "Haha, Miss Gu and young Master Wang's arrival really brings light to this prince's mansion. Come, come, this prince has already ordered the servants to prepare food and wine. There were indeed too many people last night, and this prince did not properly entertain the 2 of you. Today, this prince must drink to his heart's content with Miss Gu and young Master Wang." As he spoke, the Blood Wolf King warmly invited Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao into the mansion, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 455. Under the Blood Wolf King's lead, Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao arrived at the main hall of the front yard. Just like what the Blood Wolf King had said, he had already prepared fine wine and delicacies. "Aha, come. Miss Gu, young Master Wang, please take a seat." He personally invited Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao to take a seat. The Blood Wolf King naturally sat on the main seat, while Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao sat on either side of him. The Blood Wolf King took the initiative to raise his wine glass and said enthusiastically, "Come, let me toast to the 2 of you." Just as Xiao Chun had expected, the Blood Wolf King did not treat Gu Lingyao as a junior at all. Hearing the Blood Wolf King's words, Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao also raised their wine glasses, and the 3 of them downed the wine at the same time. After downing the wine glass, the Blood Wolf King ate the dishes in front of him while looking at Gu Lingyao and pretending as if nothing had happened. "How is sect leader Gu?" He asked about Gu Qi's situation. Hearing this, Gu Lingyao was not surprised. After all, the Blood Wolf King valued her so much because she was Gu Lingyao's daughter. Facing the Blood Wolf King's question, Gu Lingyao smiled and said, "Thank you for your concern. My father is fine." The 3 of them chatted casually. Of course, Gu Lingyao and the Blood Wolf King were the ones talking most of the time. Xiao Chun seemed to have been forgotten as he sat at the side and drank silently. This was normal, now that Xiao Chun's identity was Wang Huan. Although Wang Huan's grandfather was the great elder of the Celestial Equal sect, he was obviously inferior to Gu Lingyao. Therefore, the Blood Wolf King naturally valued Gu Lingyao more. The atmosphere seemed to be good. During the conversation, the 3 of them drank a lot of wine. At this moment, Xiao Chun noticed that the Blood Wolf King's vigilance had gradually relaxed and immediately found an excuse to leave. Hearing Xiao Chun's request to visit the Blood Wolf Mansion, the Blood Wolf King did not think much of it. Originally, he wanted to personally bring Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao to visit the mansion. However, who knew that Gu Lingyao looked at Xiao Chun with a displeased expression and shouted, "You're making a fuss. If you want to go by yourself. I'm not going." She deliberately pretended to be angry. Hearing this, the Blood Wolf King was in a dilemma. Xiao Chun wanted to visit the Blood Wolf Mansion, But Gu Lingyao did not want to go. As a result, the Blood Wolf King naturally could not personally bring Xiaochen around. After all, he could not leave Gu Lingyao alone here. After Gu Lingyao's disturbance, the Blood Wolf King was in a dilemma for a moment. In this regard, Xiaochen also saw it and pretended to be heroic. "Your Highness, please accompany Junior's sister here. I can walk around by myself." Hearing Xiaochen's words, the Blood Wolf King thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. First of all, if Gu Lingyao did not want to go, he naturally could not leave Gu Lingyao alone here. The Blood Wolf King was clear about who was more important. Secondly, there were some important places in the mansion that were guarded, so the Blood Wolf King was not afraid that Xiaochen would discover anything. Thinking of this, the Blood Wolf King was completely relieved. He looked at Xiaochen and said with a smile, "Then young Master Wang should be careful. If there's anything, you can send someone to inform me." "Thank you, Your Highness." Xiaochen bowed and thanked him. Finally, he successfully escaped. After coming out of the main hall, Xiaochen openly strolled around the mansion. Although there were many guards along the way, they obviously knew that Xiaochen was the Blood Wolf King's guest. Not only did they not stop him, but they were also extremely respectful. Of course, there were some places that Xiaochen could not enter. Seemingly having nothing to do, Xiaochen roughly found 3 places that he could enter. These 3 places were guarded by guards. Without the Blood Wolf King's order, no one could enter. Thinking about it, if his mother was really imprisoned in the Blood Wolf Mansion, it was most likely in one of these 3 places. Xiaochen wanted to find out where his mother was being held in these 3 places. After thinking for a while, he quickly came up with a target. It was a small, inconspicuous courtyard. Located in the backyard of the mansion, this small courtyard did not have the slightest bit of uniqueness. However, there were 2 guards at the entrance of the courtyard. As a result, it was obvious that this place was the most suspicious. With a goal in mind, time was tight. Although the Blood Wolf King was being delayed by Gu Lingyao, it was obvious that it would not be long. Therefore, Xiaochen must find his mother within this period of time. Moreover, he must not arouse the Blood Wolf King's suspicion. Otherwise, the Blood Wolf King would definitely be on guard when he tried to rescue her in the future. Without hesitation, Xiaochen walked towards the small courtyard. Xiaochen had already passed by this small courtyard, but this time, Xiaochen did not go to the entrance of the courtyard. Instead, he went to a corner of the courtyard. The entrance of the courtyard was guarded by the mansion's guards. Obviously, it was impossible to enter from there. Moreover, if he attacked the 2 guards, the Blood Wolf King would definitely be suspicious. With a leap, Xiaochen quietly sneaked into the courtyard. The illusion of the small courtyard was not bad. There was a pavilion and a few rooms. However, at this time, there was not a single person in the entire courtyard. It looked a little cold and cheerless. Carefully looking around, Xiaochen discovered that there was not a single person in the courtyard. Then, he went to the front of the few rooms. Xiaochen was not sure if this was the place where his mother was being held. Therefore, he did not dare to be careless. He gently pushed open the first room. There was no one inside. Looking at the furnishings, it should be a study room. There was no one in the first room. Then, Xiaochen went to the second room. Similarly, he carefully pushed open the door. This time, Xiaochen also saw a beautiful woman in a white dress with her back facing him. Looking through the window at the distant horizon, Xiaochen could feel a sense of sadness from the beautiful woman. For a moment, Xiaochen was completely stunned. Although he did not see the beautiful woman's face, how could Xiaochen not recognize that the beautiful woman in front of him was his mother, Bai Ruyue? He finally saw his mother. His heart was filled with excitement. At the same time, because Bai Ruyue's back was facing Xiaochen, she did not know who the person was. However, since she was under house arrest, other than the Blood Wolf King, no one else would come here. Therefore, Bai Ruyue did not turn her head and said coldly, "Get lost. No matter how many times you come, it will be the same." Bai Ruyue thought that the person who came was the Blood Wolf King. However, just as Bai Ruyue finished speaking, Xiaochen's voice suddenly sounded from behind her. "Mother!" Following Xiaochen's words, Bai Ruyue's originally ice-cold face and eyes filled with sadness suddenly changed. Her body could not help but tremble slightly. Then, she unconsciously turned around. When she saw Xiao Chun standing in front of the door, Bai Ruyue's first reaction was that she was hallucinating. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 456. Bai Rue stared blankly at Xiao Chun and couldn't help but tremble slightly. She thought that she was hallucinating. After all, how could Xiao Chun appear in this place? 2 lines of tears unconsciously flowed from her eyes. Even if it was an illusion, Bai Rue was already very satisfied to be able to see Xiao Chun, even if it was just a dream. If it weren't for the fact that she couldn't bear to part with Xiao Chun, Bai Rue would have already committed suicide. Bai Rue stared blankly at Xiao Chun, not daring to move. She was afraid that if she moved, Xiao Chun would disappear. Facing the dazed Bai Rue, Xiao Chun's heart was filled with excitement. He once again called out softly, "Mother!" While calling out, Xiao Chun took the initiative to walk towards Bai Rue and immediately hugged his mother tightly. His eyes were red. At this moment, Bai Rue said in disbelief, "Chun, is it really you? This isn't an illusion?" No, mother, it's your son. Your son came late." The mother and son hugged each other tightly, as if they were afraid that Xiao Chun would disappear. Bai Rue hugged Xiao Chun tightly. Her arms were wrapped around Xiao Chun's waist, as if she would rather die than let go. The mother and son hugged each other tightly. Bai Rue cried silently. After a while, Xiao Chun took the initiative to break the silence. "Mother, your son has something to say." Xiao Chun knew that time was of the essence, so he had to make things clear before then, so that the rescue could be carried out. Hearing this, Bai Rue forcibly stopped crying. Then, Xiao Chun personally closed the door. The mother and son sat facing each other in the room. Looking at Bai Rue, who had lost a lot of weight, Xiao Chun's heart ached. However, now was obviously not the time to talk about this. Looking at his mother with a serious expression, Xiao Chun said softly, "Mother, have you heard about me?" He told Bai Rue about the general plan in his heart. At the same time, he asked Bai Rue if she knew where the others were locked up. After all, according to Mu Feng, there were a total of 23 people. Facing Xiao Chun's question, Bai Rue answered truthfully. The others were currently locked up in the Blood Wolf Mansion's dungeon. After learning from Bai Rue that the others were imprisoned in the dungeon, Xiao Chun heaved a sigh of relief. As long as he knew where they were imprisoned, he would be able to formulate a more accurate rescue plan. Without wasting any time, Xiao Chun stood up and said, "Mother, I don't have much time left. I have to go back first. I will definitely come back in 2 days at most to rescue you." Obviously, they could not act today. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Bai Rue's eyes were filled with worry. Bai Rue knew how difficult it was to rescue someone from the Blood Wolf Palace. She did not want Xiao Chun to take the risk. In her heart, she would rather die than let Xiao Chun be in any danger. Therefore, Bai Rue shook her head and said, "Chun, you can't take the risk." Knowing what Bai Rue wanted to say, Xiao Chun did not give her a chance. Before Bai Rue could finish her words, Xiao Chun interrupted her. "Mother, I will definitely rescue you. I promise." After saying that, without waiting for Bai Rue's reply, Xiao Chun turned around resolutely and jumped over the wall in the blink of an eye. Successfully finding his mother was a good start. Although he still had a lot of words to say to his mother, now was not the time. After leaving Bai Rue's courtyard, Xiao Chun pretended as if nothing had happened and walked towards the main hall of the mansion. This time, when he saw his mother, Xiao Chun was secretly relieved. At least his mother was not violated. According to Bai Rue, the Blood Wolf King was very courteous to her. It seemed that he really liked his mother, so he did not force her. The only thing he did was to restrict his mother's freedom. He took good care of her in other aspects. Perhaps he wanted to use this to change his mother's mind. However, the Blood Wolf King's actions made Xiao Chun's killing intent overflow. "Old dog, you dare to touch my mother? One day, I will cut you down with my sword." No matter how good the Blood Wolf King was to his mother, since he dared to touch his mother, he would definitely die. Xiao Chun calmly returned to the main hall of the mansion. As soon as he entered the door, Xiao Chun calmed himself down and looked at the Blood Wolf King with a smile. Your Highness's mansion is really an eye-opener for me. It's not much worse than the palace. Seeing that Xiao Chun had returned, the Blood Wolf King laughed. Ha ha, young Master Wang Huan must be joking. How can my mansion be compared to the picturesque, celestial, equal sect? There are two best places in Danyang County. One is occupied by the Qingyang sect, and the other is the celestial equal sect. Compared to the celestial equal sect, my mansion is no different from the countryside. Xiao Chen's return made the Blood Wolf King secretly relieved. The three of them continued to drink and chat until dusk. Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao left the mansion under the personal escort of the Blood Wolf King. Thank you for your hospitality today, Your Highness. If you have time in the future, please visit the Celestial Equal Sect so that my father and I can play host to you. Before leaving, Gu Lingyao said politely, Haha, great. I will personally pay a visit to Sect Master Gu in the future. Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, the Blood Wolf King smiled happily. He was so polite to Gu Lingyao because he wanted to get closer to Gu Lingyao. Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, the Blood Wolf King was secretly delighted. After exchanging pleasantries, Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao got into the carriage and slowly left. After the two of them left, the smile on the Blood Wolf King's face slowly disappeared. He looked at the steward of the mansion and asked, Where did Wang Huan go just now? As expected of the cunning Blood Wolf King, he had always been on guard against Xiao Chun and Gu Lingyao. Of course, this did not mean that he had discovered anything, but it was his personality. Hearing the Blood Wolf King's words, the steward respectfully replied, I didn't discover anything special. Although he passed by Madame's courtyard, he did not enter. Hearing that Xiao Chun had passed by Ryu's courtyard, the Blood Wolf King's face sank. However, after knowing that Xiao Chun did not enter and was only passing by, the Blood Wolf King's face eased up. That's good. Xiao Chun's actions were nothing special. Regarding this, the Blood Wolf King was secretly relieved. On the other side, after leaving the Blood Wolf King's mansion, Gu Lingyao sat in the carriage and looked at Xiao Chun. How was it? Did you find anything? Yes, but we still need a plan before we can take action. Now that he had seen his mother and knew where she was being held, the next step was to take action. This was the most crucial step. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Gu Lingyao said helplessly, Father and I can't take part in the rescue operation. After all, Father is a sage-to-be expert. If he takes part, his identity will soon be exposed. As a result, the Qingyang sect will definitely take the opportunity to make things difficult for you. It won't do you any good and will instead harm you. Chapter 457. Gu Lingyao said frankly. Xiao Chun had already expected this, so he did not look disappointed. Indeed, things would be much simpler with the help of the Celestial Equal Sect. However, as Gu Lingyao had said, the Celestial Equal Sect clearly could not participate in the current situation. Otherwise, the Qingyang sect would definitely take the opportunity to make things difficult for them. Just like the three great empires, the two great sects, the Tianqi sect and the Qingyang sect, could be said to be old rivals that would not rest until one of them was dead. Once a flaw appeared on one side, the other side would definitely spare no effort to launch an attack. For example, if the Tianqi sect directly helped Xiao Chun, the Qingyang sect would definitely intervene. The result would be the Qingyang sect and the Heavenly Wolf Empire joining forces. Not only would it harm Xiao Chun, but the Tianqi sect would also be in trouble. After all, how could the Qingyang sect let go of such a good opportunity? Moreover, if the Qingyang sect really joined forces with the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the sect master of the Qingyang sect might even dare to keep Gu Qi in the Heavenly Wolf Empire. It was precisely because of the Qingyang sect that the Celestial Equal Sect could not directly intervene, as a slight move would affect the whole situation. Although the Tianqi sect could not directly intervene, there were many things that the Tianqi sect could still help with. Looking at Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chun said calmly, Can the Tianqi sect help me get a map of the Blood Wolf Mansion and the situation of the guards in the mansion? Yes. Gu Lingyao nodded after pondering for a moment. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, he nodded. With the ability of the Tianqi sect, it was not difficult for them to obtain a map of the Blood Wolf Palace and the situation of the guards. Hearing this, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "When can you get it?" "Tomorrow," Gu Lingyao said. Xiao Chen had asked the Celestial Equal sect to help him obtain a map of the Blood Wolf Palace and the situation of the guards. With these two things, Xiao Chen and the others could move more easily. However, the Celestial Equal sect's role was not limited to this. Looking at Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chen's face gradually revealed a smile. Seeing the smile on Xiao Chen's face, Gu Lingyao immediately shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Don't say any more. I have to go back and discuss this matter with my father. I haven't said it yet. Do you know what I want you to do?" Xiao Chen said with a smile before Gu Lingyao spoke. "What else? Aren't you just asking my father to lure the Blood Wolf King away so that you can save people?" Gu Lingyao said in a bad mood when he heard Xiao Chen's words. How could the intelligent Gu Lingyao not know what Xiao Chen wanted to do? Xiao Chen nodded with a smile when he heard Gu Lingyao's words. Indeed, that was his idea. Although the Tianqi sect could not directly intervene, if Gu Qi held a banquet in his name and lured the Blood Wolf King out of the mansion, it would be more convenient and easier for Xiao Chen to save people. However, as Gu Lingyao said, it was impossible for Gu Lingyao to lure the Blood Wolf King out of the mansion with his status. Only Gu Qi could do it. Moreover, in order to not arouse suspicion, Gu Qi had to invite the imperial family of the Heavenly Wolf Empire and the people of the Qingyang sect. Only then would the Blood Wolf King be unable to refuse. As for Xiao Chen's second request, Gu Lingyao did not directly agree. Everything depended on Gu Qi's decision. Xiao Chen did not say much, and the two returned to the Tianqi sect's encampment. Soon after, Xiao Chen and Gu Lingyao parted ways, and Gu Lingyao went straight to Gu Qi's residence. When Gu Lingyao arrived at Gu Qi's bamboo courtyard, Gu Qi, who was sitting alone and drinking tea, smiled and asked, "What's wrong? Is everything settled?" "More or less," Gu Lingyao replied softly when he heard Gu Qi's words. Then, he told Gu Qi about Xiao Chen's two requests. The first request was nothing to the Tianqi sect. The Tianqi sect could easily obtain a map of the Blood Wolf King's mansion and the situation of the guards. However, the second request, after hearing Xiao Chen's two requests from Gu Lingyao, Gu Qi fell in a deep thought. After a while, Gu Qi smiled and asked, "What do you think of this kid?" He asked Gu Lingyao. Although she did not know what her father meant, Gu Lingyao pondered for a while and replied honestly, "How should I put it? I can't see through him." She did not know how to describe Xiao Chen. After all, she could not see through Xiao Chen at all. Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, the smile on Gu Qi's face widened. If even you can't see through this kid, he must be extraordinary. If he can really kill his way out of the Glory Sect selection, there's no harm in helping him this time. "Father, why do you place so much importance on the Glory Sect selection? I can pass it alone." Hearing Gu Qi's words, Gu Lingyao could not help but ask. All this while, Gu Lingyao was curious as to why Gu Qi insisted on letting Xiao Chen participate in the Glory Sect selection. Facing Gu Lingyao's question, a strange look flashed across Gu Qi's eyes. However, it was only for a moment. Then, he said calmly, "Father knows that you can pass the Glory Sect selection. However, you can't do it alone in the future." "Father, are you talking about the core disciple?" Gu Lingyao asked. Shaking his head slightly, Gu Qi did not answer. He knew that with Gu Lingyao's talent and strength, it would not be difficult for her to become a core disciple in Tianfeng Xingzong. However, this was not Gu Qi's goal. Gu Qi's real goal was still behind Tianfeng Xingzong. It was to become a saint-class family that truly controlled the Tiana continent. Tianfeng Xingzong was not Gu Lingyao's final destination. Gu Lingyao's final destination was the colossus that was even more powerful than Tianfeng Xingzong. Gu Lingyao had to go there because she had to. Of course, Gu Qi did not tell Gu Lingyao about this. Now was not the time. However, to go there and complete the task that Gu Lingyao had to complete, Gu Lingyao needed an absolutely powerful existence by her side. Someone who could become Gu Lingyao's strongest support. Gu Qi felt that this person had to be Xiao Chun. After a moment of silence, Gu Qi finally said slowly, "Go and call that kid over. Father will talk to him." Gu Qi did not immediately agree to Xiao Chen's second request. This was not to say that Gu Qi cannot do it. However, it was not worth it. Before making a decision, Gu Qi wanted to talk to Xiao Chun personally and see if he was worth it. After hearing his father's words, Gu Lingyao did not ask any more questions. She turned and left. Soon, Xiao Chun was brought to Gu Lingyao. Gu Qi waved his hand, indicating for Gu Lingyao to leave. "You leave first. I want to talk to this kid alone." Chapter 458. You can leave now. I want to talk to this little guy alone. Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, Gu Lingyao turned and walked out of the bamboo courtyard without saying anything else. After Gu Lingyao left, Gu Qi pointed at the stone stool beside him, indicating for Xiao Chun to sit down. Then he said indifferently, "Lingyao has already told me what you want me to do. If you want me to lure the Blood Wolf King away, I can do that, but you have to promise me one thing." Gu Qi went straight to the point. Hearing Gu Qi's words, Xiao Chun replied calmly, "Please speak, sect master." Since his identity had been exposed, Xiao Chun had completely calmed down. Moreover, Gu Qi clearly had no intention of harming him. Smiling slightly, Gu Qi looked indifferently at Xiao Chun, who still had the appearance of Wang Huan, and said indifferently, "Lingyao should have already told you that the reason why I didn't expose your identity was because I wanted you to enter the Tianqi sect and represent us in the Glory Sect selection. However, this isn't my real goal. Without you, with Lingyao's talent and qualifications, she can still pass the Glory Sect selection. As for what I need you to do, it's still later." Have you heard of the ancient sage sect? There were many things that Gu Qi did not tell Gu Lingyao. Letting Xiao Chun participate in the sage sect selection was also not Gu Qi's goal. Hearing Gu Qi ask about the ancient sage sect, Xiao Chun shook his head. Seeing Xiao Chun shake his head, Gu Qi did not find it strange. This was because he had already guessed that Xiao Chun was not from the Tiana continent. With the same smile on his face, he calmly explained to Xiao Chun, "You should know that the Tiana continent is divided into 100 counties, 18 prefectures, and 4 prefectures. A sect like the Tianqi sect can only dominate a county, while a true sage sect like the Tianfeng Xingzong can dominate a prefecture. However, neither the Tianqi sect nor the Tianfeng Xingzong can be considered a true overlord. This is because at the top, there are 4 mountains that firmly suppress all the forces in the Tiana continent. The ancient sage sect is one of them, and its forces are spread throughout the entire ancient sage state. Although the Tianfeng Xingzong is a true sage sect, compared to the ancient sage sect, the Tianfeng Xingzong is too weak. In the Tianfeng Xingzong, although there are several saint-level experts, there is only one. But the ancient sage sect is different. There are several saint-level experts. Because there are so many saint-level experts, the ancient sage sect firmly controls everything in the ancient sage state. Even the Tianfeng Xingzong is just an insignificant ant in front of it." After briefly introducing the ancient sage state to Xiao Chun, Gu Qi paused. He glanced at Xiao Chun, who was still calm, and nodded with satisfaction. Then he continued, "What I need you to do is to enter the Tianfeng Xingzong with Lingyao, and then enter the ancient sage sect. But in the ancient sage sect, you must become the holy son of the ancient sage sect. This is my request. Can you do it?" Hearing Gu Qi's words, Xiao Chun did not immediately nod. After hearing Gu Qi's words, Xiao Chun roughly understood what Gu Qi meant. Gu Qi wanted him to enter the ancient sage sect with Gu Lingyao and become the holy son of the ancient sage sect himself. Xiao Chun understood what Gu Qi meant, but he did not know what Gu Qi's goal was. However, Gu Qi evidently did not want to say too much and only asked Xiao Chun if he could do it. After a moment of silence, Xiao Chun asked, "What is the ancient sage sect's holy son?" He had never heard of a holy son before. Hearing this, Gucci explained, there are a total of 10 holy sons in the ancient sage sect. Even the weakest holy son can instantly kill a king of geniuses. You can understand a holy son as an existence above a king of geniuses. Understanding a holy son as an existence above a king of geniuses? Hearing this, Xiao Chun was slightly stunned. He then said, Sect Master, I can't guarantee that I can do it, but I'll try my best. Facing Guqi's request, Xiao Chun could not guarantee that he could do it. Firstly, he knew nothing about holy sons and had never come into contact with them. Who knew how strong they were? Secondly, when Guqi told him this, he was obviously holding back. At the very least, Guqi did not say why he wanted him to do this. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Guqi's smile became even brighter. He looked at Xiao Chun and nodded. Very good. If you agreed just now, perhaps I would have to reconsider if it was worth it to help you. Because you have never come into contact with holy sons, you don't know how terrifying the ancient sage sect's 10 holy sons are. All right, let me know when you're about to take action, and I'll find an excuse to draw the Blood Wolf King away for you. With these words, Guqi obviously agreed to Xiao Chun's request. Seeing this, Xiao Chun bowed and thanked him. After leaving Guqi's place, Xiao Chun felt more confident in his heart. Although Guqi still would not directly help him, he would draw the Blood Wolf King away for him. As a result, the success rate of the rescue operation would increase by a lot. After a night of silence, early the next morning, Gu Lingyao indeed sent over a map of the Blood Wolf Palace and the situation of the guards. With these things, Xiao Chun immediately left the Tianqi sect's encampment and came to the seclusion of Zhangqi and the others. They had already been hiding in the imperial capital for a long time. When Xiao Chun arrived, Gu Xiu personally brought Xiao Chun into the house. At this moment, Zhangqi and the others were already waiting. After explaining the general situation to everyone, Zhangqi and the others were secretly delighted when they heard that Guqi would draw the Blood Wolf King away for them. Immediately after, Xiao Chun took out the map of the Blood Wolf King and the records of the guards. Xiao Chun pointed at a small courtyard on the map. This was the place whereby Ryue was being held. He slowly said, This is where my mother is being held, while the others are being held in the underground prison of the prince's mansion. The distance between the two places is not far, but if we want to rescue them, we have to do it at the same time. In order to rescue everyone, they must act at the same time. While rescuing Zhang Jingxiang, the rest of them must also go to the palace's dungeon to rescue the others. In total, he had to rescue 23 people. With so many people, the difficulty was naturally not small. Therefore, the entire operation had to be fast, and it had to be done in one shot. Otherwise, once the guards of the Blood Wolf Mansion reacted, it would be extremely difficult to escape. Moreover, rescuing everyone from the Blood Wolf Palace was only the first step. The next step was to leave the imperial capital and return to the Moonless Empire. This series of things must be completed in the shortest time possible. Otherwise, when the Blood Wolf King reacted, it would be extremely difficult for everyone to leave the imperial capital. Xiao Chun explained his thoughts to everyone one by one. In fact, he already had a strict plan in his heart. At this moment, after hearing Xiao Chun's plan, Zhangqi and the others did not object. After all, this was indeed the only feasible method at present. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 459. After making the final preparations with Zhangqi and the others, Xiao Chun bid farewell to everyone the next morning and returned to the Tianqi sect's encampment alone. After some discussion, everyone finally decided to take action tomorrow night. After making the decision, Xiao Chun told Gu Lingyao about it, and Gu Lingyao passed it on to Guqi. Soon, Guqi replied that he would personally host a banquet to invite the Blood Wolf King tomorrow night. Not only the Blood Wolf King, but Guqi would also invite all the influential people in the imperial capital, including the people from the Qingyang sect. Guqi was naturally thinking for Xiao Chun by inviting so many people at once. It could be said that Guqi had invited all the influential people in the imperial capital. In this way, Xiao Chun and the others could easily leave the imperial capital after rescuing by Ru Yue and the others. After hearing Gu Qi's reply, Xiao Chun was very grateful. He naturally knew Gu Qi's purpose for doing this. Originally, he only wanted Gu Qi to delay the Blood Wolf King, but Gu Qi delayed all the experts in the imperial capital. With the secret help of Gu Qi and the Tianqi sect, Xiao Chun couldn't help but secretly breathe a sigh of relief. At the same time, in the bamboo courtyard where Gu Qi lived, Gu Lingyao looked at Gu Qi and asked, "Father, you helped him lure away all the experts in the imperial capital. It should be easy to succeed, right?" "Not necessarily. Even if I can delay them for a while, it won't be enough for them to directly escape from the Heavenly Wolf Empire. You should know that even if they leave the imperial capital, it doesn't mean that they are safe," Gu Qi said indifferently after hearing Gu Lingyao's words. Gu Qi could only delay them for a while. Although he could allow Xiao Chun and the others to easily escape from the imperial capital, it didn't mean that they were safe. Once the Blood Wolf King reacted, Xiao Chun and the others would still be in danger. However, this was the only thing Gu Qi could do. If the people of the Qingyang sect were not in the Heavenly Wolf Empire, things would be fine, but now that the Qingyang sect was eyeing them covetously, it was a different story. As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Qi took out a space ring and handed it to Gu Lingyao. "Give this to that little fellow. Inside are the pills and talismans that I have prepared for him. Let him have them in case he needs them." He had specially prepared elixirs and talismans for Xiao Chun. Hearing this, Gu Lingyao nodded slightly and headed straight for Xiao Chen's residence. Although he couldn't directly help Xiao Chun, Gu Qi had indeed done a lot for Xiao Chun. After taking the interspatial ring from Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chun discovered that there were quite a lot of pills and talismans inside. Without any hesitation, Xiao Chun accepted the interspatial ring and looked at Gu Lingyao. "Thank you, Sectmaster. Don't worry. If I can survive this time, I will definitely go to the Tianqi sect in the future. Forget it. Father has already said that he will personally look for you when you return to the Moonless Empire." Gu Lingyao replied with a smile when he heard Xiao Chen's words. Everything was ready. Gu Qi had ordered people to send out the invitations one by one. All the dignitaries and experts in the capital had received Gu Qi's invitation. No one was surprised by Gu Qi's invitation. While everyone was excited to be able to attend Gu Qi's banquet, a day passed in the blink of an eye. At dusk on the second day, Xiao Chun left the Tianqi sect's encampment early and went to the residence of Zhang Qi and the others. It was drizzling. Xiao Chun, Zhang Qi, and the others sat in a circle in the room, quietly waiting for night to fall. Although they had Gu Qi's help, Xiao Chun knew very well that this operation was still extremely dangerous. There was no room for the slightest carelessness. Otherwise, not only his mother, but even he and the others would probably die in the Tianlang Empire. No one spoke. Before this, Xiao Chun had already distributed the elixirs and talismans given by Gu Qi to everyone. It was not until night had completely enveloped the entire capital that Xiao Chun slowly stood up and said, "Let's go. This operation must be fast. After rescuing them, we will gather at the East Gate." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Zhang Qi and the others also stood up and nodded with a solemn expression. Soon, under the lead of Xiao Chun, a group of people dressed in black quickly rushed to the Blood Wolf Mansion under the cover of the night and drizzle. Very quickly, he arrived at a small alley beside the Blood Wolf Mansion and gave Gu Xiu a signal with his eyes. Upon seeing this, Gu Xiu immediately agreed. With a leap, he instantly crossed the courtyard wall and infiltrated into the mansion. After entering the Blood Wolf Mansion, he observed the surroundings and did not discover anyone. Soon after, Xiao Chun and the others also crossed the wall and entered one after another. Hiding in a corner, Xiao Chun looked at everyone and said, "Act according to the plan. Gu Xiu, come with me to rescue my mother. Senior Zhang Qi, lead the others to the dungeon to rescue the others. Remember, don't stay after rescuing them. Leave as soon as possible." It had already been arranged. When they heard Xiao Chen's words, everyone nodded. Soon after, Zhang Qi led the others to the dungeon of the mansion, while Xiao Chun and Gu Xiu hurried to the courtyard where Bai Ruyue resided. Earlier, Xiao Chun had already roughly understood the situation. Perhaps it was because Bai Ruyue's cultivation was too low, so the Blood Wolf King had only sent 2 Dao validation cultivators to guard her. Therefore, with a Dao King expert like Gu Xiu, there should not be any problems. All along the way, Xiao Chun and Gu Xiu's movements were extremely secretive. Whenever they encountered the patrolling guards of the mansion, the two of them would immediately conceal themselves. It had to be said that the mansion's security was really tight. In just a few thousand meters, Xiao Chun and Gu Xiu had already encountered 6 groups of patrolling guards. They moved stealthily along the wall. When they were only 100 meters away from Bai Ruyue's courtyard, another group of guards walked over. Xiao Chun and Gu Xiu squatted in a corner and did their best to conceal their auras as they calmly watched the group of guards slowly walk past them. I wonder how Zhang Qi and the others are doing. With such tight security, will Zhang Qi and the others be able to sneak into the dungeon? Xiao Chun was slightly worried. After all, Zhang Qi and the others far outnumbered him and Gu Xiu. Once there were more people, it would naturally be even more difficult to conceal themselves. Although he was worried, now was clearly not the time to think about this. The courtyard where his mother, Bai Ruyue, resided was right before their eyes. After the group of guards had left, Xiao Chun nodded to Gu Xiu, and then the two of them suddenly dashed out and rushed over. They arrived at Bai Ruyue's courtyard without any danger. According to their previous discussion, Xiao Chun would enter the courtyard to rescue his mother, while Gu Xiu would be responsible for dealing with the 2 Dao validation cultivators outside the courtyard. They looked at each other, and then Xiao Chun nodded slightly. When he saw this, Gu Xiu directly rushed towards the 2 Dao validation cultivators outside the courtyard. As for Xiao Chun, he leaped into the courtyard and headed straight for Bai Ruyue's room. Very soon, a shout rang out from outside the courtyard. "Who is it?" A battle immediately erupted. Chapter 460. Gu Xiu had already started fighting with the 2 Dao Confirmation Realm guards. With Gu Xiu's cultivation, it wasn't difficult for him to kill 2 Dao Confirmation Realm cultivators. The only difficulty was that he had to be fast and kill them in one blow. While Gu Xiu was fighting with the 2 Dao Validation Realm guards, Xiao Chun pushed open the door to Bai Ruyue's room. Bai Ruyue, who was sitting by the window and watching the drizzle outside, immediately turned her head when she heard the door open. "Mother, I'm here to take you away," Xiao Chun said without wasting any time. Although Bai Ruyue was very happy to see Xiao Chun again, she was not a woman who could not see the big picture. She knew that every second mattered at this moment. She immediately nodded and rushed out of the courtyard under Xiao Chun's lead. From the moment Xiao Chun entered the small courtyard to the moment he left with Bai Ruyue, less than 10 breaths had passed. When Xiao Chun brought Bai Ruyue to the entrance of the courtyard, Gu Xiu had just killed the 2 Dao Validation Realm warriors who were responsible for guarding the courtyard. Knowing that the situation was urgent and that every second mattered, Gu Xiu attacked with all his strength, even though he was only facing 2 Dao Validation Realm warriors. He finished the battle within 10 breaths. Unfortunately, the aftermath of the battle still attracted the attention of the palace guards. At this moment, Xiao Chun sensed that someone was rushing over, so he said to Gu Xiu, "Let's go." After saying that, Xiao Chun carried Bai Ruyue on his back. Bai Ruyue's cultivation was only at the Heaven Realm, and her cultivation was almost entirely dependent on elixirs. Bai Ruyue's speed was too slow to escape, so Xiao Chun did not care about anything else and rushed out of the palace with Bai Ruyue on his back. At the same time that Xiao Chun successfully rescued Bai Ruyue, a fierce battle broke out in the palace's dungeon. The 11 Heavenly Chun Continent warriors, led by Zhang Qi, launched an attack on the dungeon without warning. With Zhang Qi, who was at the Dao Sovereign Realm, guarding the dungeon, the guards naturally did not have much ability to resist and were quickly annihilated. Killing her way into the dungeon, Zhang Qi finally found the 23 Heavenly Chun Continent martial artists locked up in a cell. Vice Pavilion Master. Seeing Zhang Qi, a 10,000 weapon pavilion disciple in the cell, immediately called out in surprise. "Brother Zhang Qi." At the same time, a Tao King expert called out excitedly, "We're here to save you. Follow us closely and don't fall behind." In the face of everyone's surprise, Zhang Qi didn't say much and went straight to the point. At the same time, as she spoke, she smashed the door of the cell with her palm. When the door was smashed, everyone only wanted to rush out of the dungeon. But at this moment, Zhang Qi suddenly had an idea. She looked at the other people who were imprisoned in the dungeon. These people were not warriors of the heavenly Chun continent and had nothing to do with Zhang Qi. But at this time, Zhang Qi did not hesitate to save them one by one. The reason why she rescued everyone in the dungeon was naturally not because Zhang Qi was sympathetic, but because she wanted to use these prisoners to attract the attention of the palace guards. This way, everyone could take advantage of the chaos to escape. There were a total of hundreds of prisoners in the dungeon of the Bloodwolf Mansion. At this time, after these prisoners were released, Zhang Qi shouted loudly, "Everyone, if you want to live, quickly escape. Escape from the imperial capital, and you'll be free to fly. Run." The prisoners who were suddenly rescued were still in a daze. At this time, when they heard Zhang Qi's angry shout, all of their faces changed, and they rushed madly toward the dungeon. That's right. Who would want to be locked up in this dark dungeon? Now that there was a chance to escape, these prisoners naturally spared no effort to run out of the prince's mansion. At the same time that these fugitives charged madly out of the dungeon, group after group of guard from the king's estate had arrived outside the dungeon successively, and over 100 fugitives had charged madly out of the dungeon before they could even set up a formation. The expression of the Tao King in the lead sank when he saw this, and he immediately shouted coldly, "Damn it! Someone is trying to break out of the prison. Surround them and kill anyone who resists." He did not expect that someone would dare to break out of the prison. Along with the shout of the Tao King realm expert, several groups of palace guards, a total of 70 to 80 people, rushed toward the prisoners. At the same time, more guards rushed over. Facing the attack of the palace guards, Zhang Qi, who followed the prisoners out, shouted angrily at this time, "Kill these bastards and we can escape. Kill!" This angry shout once again aroused the killing intent in the hearts of the prisoners. These people had been locked up in the dungeon by the Bloodwolf King for dozens of years. It could be said that they had suffered a lot, so they hated the Bloodwolf King even more. Now that they had a chance to escape, how could they allow themselves to be captured without putting up a fight? Sure enough, under Zhang Qi's angry shout, all the prisoners showed signs of fighting with their lives, and they immediately engaged in a fierce battle with the palace guards. Looking at the two sides of the battle, the face of the Tao King realm expert who led the palace guards sank, and he said to a guard beside him in a deep voice, "Quickly inform his supervisor." The Bloodwolf King was not the only super expert in the Tao Master realm in the Bloodwolf Mansion. The supervisor in charge of the guards of the mansion was also a super expert in the Tao Master realm. The guard immediately turned around and left when he heard that. At the same time, the Tao King intended to act and suppress the prisoners as well. However, Zhang Qi suddenly erupted with rage before he could do so. She suddenly smashed her fist towards the Tao King with murderous intent. The Tao King realm expert had already noticed this person. Facing Zhang Qi's sudden attack, the Tao King realm expert's expression changed drastically. He felt a fatal aura from Zhang Qi, and he said with some surprise, Tao Master, how could it be possible that Zhang Qi was a super expert of the Tao Master realm? How could a super expert of the Tao Master realm come back so quickly to break out of the prison? He was shocked, but was all over. Zhang Qi's punch landed heavily on the Tao King realm expert's chest, and the sound of bones cracking was heard, and his heart meridian was instantly shattered. She killed the Tao King realm expert in an instant. Then, Zhang Qi looked at the warriors of the heavenly Chun continent and said, "Quickly, let's go to the East Gate." Because of the prison break, the entire palace was in complete chaos. Countless guards rushed to the dungeon, and at the same time, Zhang Qi led the crowd to tear apart the guards of the Bloodwolf Palace, as if they were Jian Yi, and they went straight to the East Gate. Along the way, Zhang Qi and the others fought their way out of the palace. As they rushed to the east gate, Zhang Qi was secretly worried. I wonder how young master and Gu Xiu are now. Chapter 461. Zhang Qi had successfully led her group out of the estate. On the other side, Xiao Qin's group was even faster than Zhang Qi. It could be said that after rescuing his mother, by Ryue, Xiao Qun and the others did not encounter much resistance and smoothly rushed out of the Bloodwolf Palace. This was all thanks to Zhang Qi and the others. It was precisely because Zhang Qi's group had caused such a great commotion in the dungeon that all the guards in the estate had rushed towards the dungeon. On the other hand, Xiao Qin's group seemed to have been forgotten. Xiao Qin naturally would not waste such a great opportunity. He allowed Bai Ruyue's group to rush out of the estate. Not long after Xiao Qin's group left, a middle-aged man in black robes appeared in Bai Ruyue's courtyard. He spoke with a gloomy expression as he looked at the corpses of the 2 Dao Validation Realm guards at the entrance. Damn it, the middle-aged man was the head guard of the mansion of Bloodwolf. He was a genuine super expert in the Tao Master Realm. After hearing about the riot in the dungeon, the middle-aged man did not rush to the dungeon, but came here instead. He knew very well how important Bai Ruyue was to the Bloodwolf King. So, even though the dungeon was in chaos, Bai Ruyue was clearly more important to him. However, he never expected that Bai Ruyue would actually be rescued. The middle-aged man's eyes were overflowing with killing intent. He immediately shouted to the 2 Dao Kings behind him, "Quickly notify the guards at the 4 city gates. Tell them that it's the king's orders. No one is allowed to enter or leave immediately." Yes, the 2 Dao Kings nodded respectfully when they heard the middle-aged man's words. After that, they vanished on the spot. Since Bai Ruyue had been rescued, it was even more reason to not allow these people to leave the city. As long as they were trapped in the imperial capital, the Bloodwolf King would naturally be able to find them with his ability. After instructing the 2 of them, the middle-aged man ordered someone to head to the celestial equal sex encampment to inform the Bloodwolf King. As for himself, he personally rushed to the 4 city gates. As for the chaos in the underground prison, it was not worth mentioning in the eyes of the middle-aged man. The most important thing now was to find Bai Ruyue. The Bloodwolf Mansion was in complete chaos, and Xiao Qun and the others were in a race against time. They had to escape from the imperial capital before the Bloodwolf King could react. Only then would they have a chance to return to the Moonless Empire. While Xiao Qun and the others were heading straight for the East Gate, the atmosphere at the Tianqi Sex encampment was extremely lively because Gu Qi had personally hosted the banquet. Almost all the influential figures in the Tianqi Sex imperial capital were present. As one of the 4 grand princes of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the Bloodwolf King was naturally drinking to his heart's content at the banquet. There was a happy smile on his face. However, although he was smiling on the surface, the Bloodwolf King felt that something was wrong tonight, as if something big was about to happen. It was precisely because he felt that something was wrong that the Bloodwolf King actually wanted to leave. However, he didn't know why the 3rd elder of the Celestial Equal sect had been pulling him to drink all night. As such, the Bloodwolf King couldn't leave early. The 3rd elder had been drinking with the Bloodwolf King. This was naturally Gu Qi's order. Although he did not know what Gu Qi meant, the 3rd elder had always obeyed Gu Qi's orders. Therefore, he did not have the slightest suspicion. The 3rd elder had been by the Bloodwolf King's side for the entire night. The more he drank, the more he felt that something was wrong. It had to be said that the Bloodwolf King was indeed a meticulous person. Coupled with the 3rd elder's abnormal behavior today, the Bloodwolf King was even more puzzled. Therefore, the Bloodwolf King used the alcohol to say to the 3rd elder, "Ha, 3rd elder, please wait for a moment. I'll go and have a drink with His Majesty. We'll continue later." Hearing the Bloodwolf King's words, the 3rd elder could not stop him and nodded his head slightly. After successfully asking the 3rd elder, the Bloodwolf King quickly blended into the crowd. He silently exited the hall and headed straight for the Bloodwolf Royal Mansion. He found an excuse to leave. Just as the Bloodwolf King walked out of the Tianqi Sex encampment, a guard from the Bloodwolf Royal Mansion had just arrived. The two of them bumped into each other. When the guard saw the Bloodwolf King, he immediately told the Bloodwolf King about what happened in the mansion. After hearing about the prison riot and how Ryua was taken away, the Bloodwolf King's face immediately sank. He quickly recalled the Third Elder's abnormal behavior today. In an instant, the Bloodwolf King seemed to have thought of something. However, it was obviously impossible for him to directly question Gucci. The Bloodwolf King immediately said to the guard, "Quick, take my token and inform the guards at the 4 city gates. Don't let anyone out of the city." Gucci's banquet today had already made the Bloodwolf King feel strange. Now, he was even more certain that Gucci and Ryua's rescue were definitely related. The Bloodwolf King immediately responded. Although he had already found out about this matter in the shortest amount of time, he also understood that it was probably too late to seal off the Imperial City. After all the nobles and experts in the Imperial City were currently drinking in the Tianchi sect's encampment. As a result, the defense of the 4 city gates was naturally lax. It was very likely that the thieves had already broken into the city. Realizing that it might be a step too late, the Bloodwolf King immediately took out a sound transmission talisman and sent out dozens of messages. These sound transmission talismans were sent to the city lords of the major cities around the Imperial City. The orders on the talismans were very simple. All the city lords were to close the heavy teleportation array, and no one was to use it again. Realizing that Xiao Chun and the rest had successfully escaped from the Imperial City, the Bloodwolf King took a step back. Since the Imperial City had been breached, he could not allow these thieves to leave the Heavenly Wolf Empire so easily. Without the teleportation array, it would not be easy for Xiao Chun and the rest to rush to the border of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. They did not know that the Bloodwolf King had already made such strict arrangements in such a short period of time. In particular, he ordered the city lords to close the teleportation array. This was equivalent to cutting off Xiao Chun and the rest's escape route. While the Bloodwolf King was making arrangements, the eastern gate of the Imperial City was also under attack. Facing the attack of Xiao Chun and the rest, the guards at the eastern gate could not hold on for long. They were quickly defeated, and Xiao Chun and the rest successfully killed their way out of the eastern gate. After successfully escaping from the Imperial City, Xiao Chun and the rest quickly disappeared into the night. They had already planned their escape route. Not far from the Imperial City, there was a city called Kingstown. There was a teleportation array there. Through the teleportation array, Xiao Chun and the rest could directly reach the border of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 462. After successfully escaping from the imperial capital, Xiao Chun and the others headed straight for Kingstown. After running for an entire night, they finally arrived at Kingstown. They silently entered the borders of Kingstown and did not stop. Xiao Chun and the others headed straight for the teleportation matrix in the city. Before entering the city, Xiao Chun's group had already changed into clean clothes, so it was impossible to tell that they had gone through an intense battle last night. However, Xiao Chun did not expect that when they arrived at the teleportation formation in Kong City, Xiao Chun discovered that it had been completely shut down. At the same time, over 100 light soldiers stood guard around it. A cold light flashed through Xiao Chun's eyes. It was not good news that the teleportation formation in Kong City had been shut down at this time. After asking around, they found out that the teleportation formation in Kong City had suddenly shut down last night. No one was allowed to use it. As for why, the city lord's estate did not provide any explanation. Xiao Chun frowned slightly. He had a rough idea of what had happened. He silently led the group away and found it first. After all, they were all very tired after a night of running and fighting. If they wanted to continue on their way, they needed to rest for a while. After settling Ryua down, Xiao Chun, Zhangqi, and Guxiu sat together and looked at the four of them. Xiao Chun said indifferently, "The Bloodwolf King probably already knows about this. It's probably not just the teleportation formation in Kong City that has been shut down. The The teleportation formations in the other cities have probably been shut down as well. As a result, it's probably impossible to use the teleportation formation to get to Hulao Pass. Xiaochen quickly realized that the teleportation formation in Kong City had been shut down because of the Blood Wolf King. Moreover, if it really was the Blood Wolf King, he definitely would have cut off all their paths of retreat. As a result, it was impossible for him to shut down just the teleportation formation in Kong City. The expressions of Zhang Qi and the others changed slightly when they heard Xiaochen's words. Guxiu's expression was unsightly as he said, "If that's really the case, what should we do? Without a teleportation formation, it would take us at least half a month to reach Hulao Pass if we were to travel by foot. Moreover, if it is as you said, the Blood Wolf King is able to close all the teleportation formations to Hulao Pass. He will definitely strictly inspect us along the way." The Blood Wolf King's reaction was so fast that it was beyond everyone's expectations. Who would have thought that the Blood Wolf King would make such a deployment in just one night? Upon hearing Guxiu's words, Zhang Qi and the others all looked at Xiaochen. Although they were all considered Xiaochen's juniors along the way, Zhang Qi and the others sincerely admired Xiaochen's lack of temperament. For a young man who was not even 30 years old to have Xiaochen's temperament, Zhang Qi and the others had never seen someone like him. Facing everyone's gazes, Xiaochen softly muttered, "It seems that the Blood Wolf King wants to trap us in the Heavenly Wolf Empire until we die. He already knows that the Imperial Capital can't trap us, so he might as well expand the range and trap us in the Heavenly Wolf Empire until we die." After speaking softly, Xiaochen fell silent for a while before looking at Zhang Qi and the others. His eyes flashed with determination as he said, "There is no other way now. It is impossible to use the teleportation formation. Moreover, it is not suitable for us to stay in the city for long. I believe that it will not be long before the Blood Wolf King begins to wantonly search for our whereabouts. Therefore, we must leave Connecticut City and head towards Hulao Pass. Although the road will be filled with difficulties, there is no other choice now." It was impossible to rely on the teleportation formation now, and they could not even stay in the city for long. Hearing Xiaochen's words, Zhang Qi and the others present had a solemn expression, but there was no better way. Silently nodding their heads, Zhang Qi and the others also agreed with Xiaochen's idea. After all, no matter how good the plan was, it still had to be changed according to the actual situation. Now that the Blood Wolf King had reacted quickly, Xiaochen and the others had to make some changes to their plan. Seeing Zhang Qi and the others nod their heads, Xiaochen said, "Okay, then there is no time to lose. Let's leave the city immediately." While Xiaochen and the others were discussing the follow-up plan, in the Imperial capital, the Blood Wolf King had summoned all his generals in his mansion. Unlike the four princes of the Moonless Empire, the four princes of the Celestial Wolf Empire had real military power in their hands. Therefore, the Blood Wolf King did not need the Imperial family's permission to arrest Bai Riyue. Moreover, this was the Blood Wolf King's private matter, and the Imperial family would not interfere. There were a total of 8 men sitting below the Blood Wolf King. 2 of them were at the Dao Master Realm, and 6 of them were at the Dao King Realm. These 8 people were the 8 most important ministers that the Blood Wolf King was most proud of. Glancing at the 8 people, the Blood Wolf King's expression was unusually calm, but there were 2 extremely strong killing intent shooting out from his eyes. He said in a cold voice, "Seal the borders of the country immediately, and, at the same time, strictly check all the roads leading to the border. I have already sent a message to the Imperial family and the other 3 princes to ask for their help. I don't care what method you use, but this time, you must capture Bai Riyue for me." Since he did not know Xiaochen's identity, the Blood Wolf King naturally did not know that they would flee to Hulao Pass. He had arranged for all the roads leading to the border to be checked. At the same time, he had also asked the Imperial family of the Celestial Wolf Empire and the other 3 princes to help. It had to be said that the Blood Wolf King had indeed put in a lot of effort for Bai Riyue, and he truly liked Bai Riyue. Since the first time he saw Bai Riyue, the Blood Wolf King was deeply attracted to her. He even did not hesitate to put Bairuyue under house arrest in order to make her change her mind. However, to the Blood Wolf King, everything he did was because of his infatuation with Bairuyue, but to Xiao Chun, everything the Blood Wolf King did deserved to die. He had already set up an inescapable net, vowing to intercept Xiao Chun and the others in the Celestial Wolf Empire and catch them like a turtle in a jar. As soon as the Blood Wolf King finished speaking, the 8 people below him stood up and bowed. The Blood Wolf King then waved his hand, and the 8 people immediately left. Clearly, they had lost their plan. After the 8 people left, the Blood Wolf King sat alone in the main hall. He had already guessed that this was related to the Celestial Equal sect. However, the Blood Wolf King was not stupid and naturally did not dare to question Guqi. Just as the Blood Wolf King was pondering, a white-haired steward of the king's mansion hurriedly walked in and respectfully said to the Blood Wolf King, "Your Highness, the young master of the Qingyang sect, Hua Zhe, has come to visit." Hua Zhe, what's he doing here? Just say that I'm not here. Hearing that Hua Zhe had come to visit, the Blood Wolf King slightly exhorted. However, he was not in the mood to entertain Hua Zhe, so he simply refused to see him. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 463. He did not intend to, nor did he have the time to greet Hua Zhe. However, after hearing the Blood Wolf King's words, the old butler said with a strange expression, "But he said he knows who rescued Madam." The old butler actually called Bairuyue Madam. If Xiao Chun was here, he would definitely be furious. The Blood Wolf King was clearly courting death. Hearing the old butler's words, a strange glint flashed across the Blood Wolf King's eyes. After a moment of silence, he said, "Bring him in." Originally, he did not intend to meet Hua Zhe. However, since Hua Zhe said that he knew who rescued Bairuyue, the Blood Wolf King's interest was piqued. Soon, Hua Zhe came to the main hall and bowed to the Blood Wolf King. Seeing this, the Blood Wolf King also cupped his hands and said, "Young Master Hua, please take a seat." Hua Zhe was the young sect master of the Qingyang sect, so he had to be polite. Even though the Blood Wolf King was in a bad mood, he did not dare to neglect Hua Zhe. Hua Zhe calmly sat down next to the Blood Wolf King and went straight to the point. "Your Highness, this junior already knows who kidnapped Madam. Please tell me, young Master Hua. This king will definitely reward you handsomely." Hearing Hua Zhe's words, the Blood Wolf King also said with a serious face. Facing the Blood Wolf King's question, Hua Zhe said indifferently, "That person is Wang Huan from the Celestial Equal sect." The incident at the Blood Wolf Mansion was no longer a secret in the imperial capital. As the young sect master of the Qingyang sect, Hua Zhe naturally received the news. Moreover, through the second elder of the Celestial Equal sect, Hua Zhe quickly found out that Wang Huan had mysteriously disappeared. Last night, Guqi wantonly invited the influential figures of the imperial capital to a banquet. But this time, such an incident happened at the Blood Wolf Mansion. Anyone with a discerning eye knew that this matter was definitely related to Guqi. However, due to the lack of evidence and the fact that Guqi was a safe-to-be expert, no one dared to say anything. Since this matter was related to Guqi and Xiao Chen's sudden disappearance, it was naturally easy to understand the situation. Hua Zhe truthfully told the Blood Wolf King the news he received. Hearing Hua Zhe's words, a cold glint flashed across the Blood Wolf King's eyes. Wang Huan. After Hua Zhe's reminder, the Blood Wolf King quickly reacted. Previously, Wang Huan and Gu Lingyao had come to his place. During this period, Wang Huan had even left for a period of time. Now that he thought about it, Wang Huan must have come to scout ahead. It was almost certain that Wang Huan was the one behind this matter. Blood Wolf King already had a ranking in his heart. Hua Zhe smiled and said, "Your Highness is busy, so I won't disturb you any further." Since he had already said what he needed to say, Hua Zhe got up and bid farewell. Hearing this, the Blood Wolf King got up and thanked him. "Prince Hua, take care. I will definitely thank you later. Your Highness is too polite." Huaze smiled. Huaze personally sent Huaze out of the mansion and left the Blood Wolf King's place. Huaze revealed a sneer. The reason why he told the Blood Wolf King this was entirely to take revenge on Xiao Chun. It was understandable that Xiao Chun had defeated him during the grand meeting between the two sections. However, Huaze still held a grudge against Xiao Chun because of this. Now that he knew about this, Huaze did not hesitate to tell Blood Wolf King about it. Wang Huan, let's see if you can survive this time, Huaze thought with a sneer on his face. Unaware of what happened in the imperial capital, Xiao Chen's group had already left Connecticut City. They didn't take the official road. Xiao Chen's group had been searching for unfrequented routes. They had already guessed that the Blood Wolf King would set up roadblocks along the way. Taking the official road was equivalent to walking into a trap. They had been traveling for 3 days, but because they were walking, their speed wasn't very fast. There was still a long way to go before they arrived at Hulao Pass. If they wanted to hide their whereabouts, they naturally couldn't fly because they were too big of a target. There were more than 30 people. Because they were in a hurry, they had bought enough dragon horses. At this moment, the group was riding on the dragon horses as they traveled through a boundless wasteland. Along the way, Xiao Chun didn't dare to be careless. As they traveled, Xiao Chun asked Bai Ryu, "Mother, how is it? Do you want to rest for a while?" "Mother is fine." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Bai Ryu shook her head and said, they had basically left the imperial capital of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, but they were still very far from the borders of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Worried that Bai Ryu wouldn't be able to endure such a long journey, Xiao Chun asked worriedly. Just as Bai Ryu's voice fell, a group of soldiers wearing black martial attire quickly flew over from behind. From afar, they saw Xiao Chen's group. The leader of the group was at the Dao Transformation Realm. They were really ordered to search for Bai Ryu's whereabouts. At this moment, seeing Xiao Chen's group from afar, the leader frowned and said, "Go down and ask." In just 3 days, the entire Heavenly Wolf Empire was filled with wanted posters for Bai Ryu, Xiao Chun, and the others. Of course, the Blood Wolf King didn't know Xiao Chen's true identity and appearance, so he posted Wang Huan's identity on the wanted posters. The entire army of the Heavenly Wolf Empire was searching for Xiao Chen's group, and this group of soldiers was doing the same. At the same time, Xiao Chen's group naturally noticed the presence of this group of soldiers. In an instant, Zhang Qi looked at Xiao Chun and said, "Young master, let's take a look first. If it doesn't work, we'll kill them all." Knowing what Zhang Qi meant, Xiao Chun gestured for everyone not to panic. He wanted to observe the situation first. Just as Xiao Chen's voice fell, the group of more than 100 soldiers blocked the path of Xiao Chen's group. The leader shouted coldly, "Who are you? Where are you going?" "Sir, we are from Connecticut City, and we are heading to Pooh City," Xiao Chen replied after hearing the leader's words. Heading to Pooh City from Connecticut City. Hearing this, the leader's gaze swept across Xiao Chen's group. When he saw the 23 Heavenly Chan Continent warriors who were imprisoned in the Blood Wolf Mansion, his expression changed abruptly. The Blood Wolf King had already distributed the portraits of these people to the many soldiers of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Therefore, when the general saw these people, he quickly knew the identity of these people. They were the prisoners who had escaped from the Blood Wolf Mansion. His face suddenly changed, but Zhang Qi was one step ahead of him, and she suddenly burst into action. Previously, when the leader's expression changed, Xiao Chun instantly guessed that he had seen through their identities. Immediately, he signaled Zhang Qi with his eyes. Seeing this, Zhang Qi naturally didn't hesitate and immediately chose to take action. "Damn it, they're those bastards. Take them down." Zhang Qi exploded, and the leading general immediately shouted angrily, "Please collect, vote, recommend." Chapter 464. He did not expect to meet Xiao Chun and the others here. The plain they were on was called the Sirius Plains, which was the hinterland of the Sirius Empire. With the general's angry roar, more than 100 soldiers of the Sirius Empire attacked Xiao Chun and the others. He did not know the strength of Xiao Chun and the others, but he knew that Zhang Qi had killed more than a dozen soldiers in an instant with just one palm strike. Seeing this scene, the general's face suddenly changed, and he said in disbelief, "Strong cultivators of the Tao Master Realm." Seeing that Zhang Qi was a Tao sovereign expert, the general's heart sank. Zhang Qi alone was not someone they could deal with. Without hesitation, the general immediately took out a transportation glyph and activated it. Seeing that the general used the transportation glyph, Xiao Chun coldly shouted to Gu Xiu, "Stop him, don't let him escape." He knew very well that if their whereabouts were exposed, it would be too difficult for them to escape. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Gu Xiu immediately attacked with a fierce punch. However, he was still a step too late. Although Gu Xiu's punch successfully hit the general, he still managed to escape with the transportation glyph. After the general escaped, the remaining soldiers were quickly killed by Zhang Qi and the others. However, Xiao Chen was not happy at all. The general had escaped, so it would not be long before the Blood Wolf King found out about their whereabouts. "We can't stay here any longer. We must rush out of the Sirius Plains as soon as possible." With a serious expression, Xiao Chun said faintly. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the others nodded. Then, Xiao Chun made a prompt decision. He ordered everyone to abandon their dragon horses and fly out of the Sirius Plains as soon as possible. All this while, the reason why everyone did not fly in the air was because they wanted to hide their tracks. However, that general had already fled. In this way, everyone's tracks were naturally exposed. There was no point in continuing to hide. Carrying their mother, Bai Riwe, on their backs, the group soared into the sky and quickly flew out of the Sirius Plains. While Xiao Chun and the others were hurrying on their way, the general, who had just escaped death, immediately reported the situation to the Blood Wolf King. An hour later, the Blood Wolf King, who was in the imperial capital, received the news and said with a murderous look in his eyes, "You ran to the Celestial Wolf Plains? Humph. Do you think you can escape the Celestial Wolf Empire?" Immediately, the Blood Wolf King mobilized the army around the Sirius Plateau and surrounded it. At the same time, the Blood Wolf King personally set off for the Sirius Plateau. Now that he knew the whereabouts of Xiao Chun and the others, the Blood Wolf King naturally wouldn't let Xiao Chun and the others escape. He sealed off the entire Sirius Plains and then caught them like turtles in a jar. Following the Blood Wolf King's order, the army stationed around the Sirius Plateau was mobilized. A total of 400,000 people quickly blocked off the periphery of the Sirius Plateau. At the same time, according to the Blood Wolf King's order, the hundreds of thousands of soldiers continued to shrink the encirclement. They wanted to completely trap Xiao Chun and the others in the Sirius Plateau. While the Blood Wolf King was taking action, Gu Lingyao and Gu Qi, who were in the imperial capital, looked at their father. Gu Lingyao asked worriedly, "Father, do you think he can escape?" "I don't know, but we can't do anything anymore. The Qingyang sect has not left the Sirius Empire until now. They are obviously watching us. They can no longer help Xiao Chun. Logically speaking, the Qingyang sect should have left the Sirius Empire after the two sects' grand meeting ended. However, the Qingyang sect had not left until now. It was obvious that they were waiting for the Tianqi sect. There was no doubt that if Gu Qi helped Xiao Chen again, the Qingyang sect would definitely take the opportunity to make things difficult for him. If it were any other time, Gu Qi could still go all out. However, he couldn't do so now because the Tianqi sect had a huge internal problem. The most important thing now was to eliminate the first elder and second elder. Hearing Gu Qi's words, Gu Lingyao also knew about this. He could only sigh helplessly. Gu Qi had already done what he had to do. The rest was up to Xiao Chun. With a calm expression, Gu Qi finally said indifferently, "Get ready to leave the Sirius Empire tomorrow. It's time to settle the first elder and second elder's matter." Gu Lingyao was ready to leave the Sirius Empire and return to the Tianqi sect. Hearing Gu Qi's words, he nodded and got up to leave. It was impossible for the Tianqi sect to help Xiao Chun anymore. The next morning, Gu Qi really left the Sirius Empire with the Tianqi sect and returned to the Tianqi sect. As Gu Qi and the others left, the sect master of the Qingyang sect, and Hua Zhe sat opposite each other in the garden of the Qingyang sect's encampment. Looking at Hua Zhe, the sect master of the Qingyang sect asked softly, "Gu Qi has already left. I knew that old fox wouldn't give us a chance. Father should have thought of this long ago. After all, this is the Heavenly Wolf Empire. If Gu Qi disregards everything, Father can join forces with the Heavenly Wolf Empire and completely kill Gu Qi. How could Gu Qi not have thought of this?" Huaze softly replied after hearing his father's words. "Forget it. Since Gu Qi has left, we should also leave," said the sect master of the Qingyang sect. Since Gu Qi didn't give them a chance, there was no point for the Qingyang sect to stay in the Sirius Empire any longer. The Qingyang sect also left soon after the Tianqi sect left. The two sects left one after another, but the operation to capture Shaochun was still ongoing. After 3 days, Shaochun and the others were completely trapped in the Sirius Plains. They had fought several fierce battles along the way, and the number of troops from the Sirius Empire was increasing. At this moment, Shaochun and the others, who had just experienced a fierce battle, found a secluded place to rest for a while. Everyone sat together in a circle. Shaochun said to Zhang Qi, Gu Xiu, and the others with a solemn expression, "It seems that the entire Sirius Plains has been sealed off by the Sirius Empire's army." After experiencing several fierce battles in the past 3 days, Shaochun was certain that the entire Sirius Plains had been sealed off. It could be said that Shaochun and the others were now surrounded by the Sirius Empire's army. If they wanted to escape, they could only tear a hole in the encirclement of the Sirius Empire's army. However, this would inevitably lead to another battle, but there was no other way. Moreover, the longer the battle dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for Shaochun and the others. This was because the Sirius Empire's army was constantly shrinking the encirclement. As a result, it would only become more and more difficult to break out. There was only one way to break out. However, even if they wanted to break out, they had to choose a direction. Gu Xiu took out the map of the Sirius Empire, which Shaochun had prepared earlier. After looking at the map for a while, Shaochun finally pointed to a point on the map and said in a deep voice, "We'll break out from here. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 465. Shaochun pointed at a spot on the map. Everyone looked in the direction that Shaochun pointed. They saw that the place he chose to break out was the west side of the Sirius Plains. Gu Xiu revealed a puzzled expression. He asked doubtfully about Shaochun's decision. "Young master, if we break out from here, wouldn't we be going in the opposite direction of Hulao Pass?" The place Shaochun chose to break out was in the opposite direction of Hulao Pass. Gu Xiu did not understand. If that was the case, would they still go to Hulao Pass? In response to Gu Xiu's question, Shaochun explained, "Now that the entire Sirius Plains is surrounded, the Blood Wolf King will definitely think that we are preparing to leave the Sirius Empire. As such, the blockade leading to Hulao Pass will naturally be the tightest. Not to mention whether we can succeed in breaking out from there. Even if we succeed, there will be many casualties. As such, we will go in the opposite direction and break out from the west. Although we will have to take a long detour, look, after we break out of the Sirius Plains from the west, we can enter Mount Mang. As long as we can enter Mount Mang, we will have enough space to deal with the Blood Wolf King. At the same time, Mount Mang leads directly to Hulao Pass. We can pass through Mount Mang directly and rush to Hulao Pass. Although it will be much safer, Shaochun explained patiently. Hearing this, Gu Xiu and the others were enlightened. At the same time, they could not help but admire Shaochun even more. Shaochun might be the youngest among them, and his cultivation was only at the small perfection Tao querying realm. However, along the way, Shaochun's various decisions could be said to be extremely correct. Zhang Qi, Gu Xiu, and the other experts of the older generation, who had lived for more than 100 years, could not help but admire him. At the very least, they would not be able to do what Xiao Chun did under the same circumstances. No one had any objections to Xiao Chen's decision. After that, Xiao Chen discussed the details with everyone. Sitting not far away, Bai Ruyue's eyes were filled with pride as she watched Xiao Chen discuss with the others. The true dragon of the Xiao family, a teenager, had unknowingly grown to such a level. In the face of the older generation experts of the heavenly Chun continent, Xiao Chun was neither servile nor overbearing. At the same time, in the past few days of fleeing, Bai Ruyue could clearly feel that Zhang Qi and the others truly admired Xiao Chun from the bottom of their hearts. They were also willing to listen to Xiao Chen's orders. From a young and inexperienced youth, Xiao Chun had grown to become the center of attention. Weren't the dozens of heavenly Chun continent warriors in front of him the same? With Xiao Chun as the center, they surrounded Xiao Chun and were willing to listen to any orders from Xiao Chun. Suddenly, Bai Ruyue really felt that Xiao Chun had grown up. He was no longer the talented youth of the past. After a round of discussion, they finally finalized all the details. In the end, Xiao Chun stood up and looked around at everyone present. He said in a deep voice, "For this breakout, everyone must not be overly zealous. I hope that everyone present will be able to leave the Heavenly Wolf Empire safely. I, Xiao Chun, do not wish to see any of my compatriots fall." Even if it was a breakout, Xiao Chun did not wish to see any of the Heavenly Chun continent's warriors fall. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, everyone nodded heavily. Now that they had a plan, Xiao Chun and the others turned around and headed straight for the west side of the Heavenly Wolf Plains. They were already at the edge of the Heavenly Wolf Plains, so it did not take long for them to reach the west side of the Heavenly Wolf Plains. One day later, Xiao Chun and the others arrived at the breakout point. They hid behind a huge rock far away. More than 10 miles away from Xiao Chun and the others was the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army's encampment. As long as they rushed over, they would be able to enter Mount Mang. Xiao Chun sent Gu Xiu to investigate. 2 hours later, Gu Xiu returned. "Young master, there are about 10,000 Heavenly Wolf Empire's soldiers stationed in front of us." Gu Xiu told Xiao Chun the detailed information he had obtained. Hearing Gu Xiu's words, Xiao Chun nodded slightly. He patted Gu Xiu's shoulder and said, "You've worked hard. Go and rest first." After letting Gu Xiu take the time to rest, Xiao Chun fell into deep thought. 10,000 Heavenly Wolf Empire soldiers was not a lot. It could even be said that it was a small number. However, the most important problem was that once Xiao Chun and the others broke out, they had to tear apart the army's defensive line in a short time. Otherwise, the other troops of the Heavenly Wolf Empire would arrive to support them. They did not want to defeat the army, but to tear apart their defensive line. In the end, Xiao Chun decided to attack at night. Under the cover of the night, the people of the Heavenly Chun continent suddenly launched an attack. All of their forces were concentrated at one point. They wanted to tear apart the army's defensive line as quickly as possible and then enter Mount Mang. Xiao Chun patiently lurked in the same spot and waited until nightfall before he gathered everyone. According to Xiao Chen's plan, Zhang Qi would be the leader of this breakout. After all, Zhang Qi was a super expert of the Dao Master Realm. She would be the first to attack with her battle qi. As for the others, they would follow Zhang Qi according to their cultivation level. They would rush straight into the enemy and tear open a path as quickly as possible. There was only one requirement for everyone. There were a total of 36 people present. In this battle, Xiao Chen wanted everyone to be like a dagger. They were only missing the enemy's heart. They would completely tear apart the enemy's defensive line. Zhang Qi was the sharpest point of this dagger. After explaining the whole plan to everyone, Xiao Chun asked Zhang Qi to stay. He bowed respectfully to Zhang Qi and said sincerely, "Xiao Chun, thanks, senior." Zhang Qi had never complained about him coming to rescue Bai Ruyue. As a super expert of the Dao Master Realm, Zhang Qi was obedient to him. Therefore, Xiao Chun was sincerely grateful to Zhang Qi. In response to Xiao Chen's gratitude, Zhang Qi smiled and said, "You don't have to thank me, young master. The heavenly Chun continent has undergone a great change, and we have to leave our homeland. I have already thought about it. People like you are the hope of the heavenly Chun continent. I am willing to be at your beck and call." Zhang Qi was completely convinced by Xiao Chun and was moved. Xiao Chun bowed to Zhang Qi again. Then, everyone quietly moved toward the army of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Xiao Chun did not want to alert the enemy. He wanted to launch a surprise attack when the enemy was unprepared. Only in this way could he catch them off guard and tear open a path as soon as possible. Xiao Chun quietly arrived in front of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's military camp. Seeing that the military camp had already appeared in their line of sight, everyone tried their best to conceal their presence. Finally, when they were less than 1,000 meters away from the camp, Xiao Chun suddenly shouted in a clear voice, "Kill!" Following Xiao Chen's angry roar, with Zhang Qi in the lead and Gu Xiu and the other two Dao Kings as support, everyone hesitated for a moment before they charged toward the army of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 466. The sudden battle cry stunned the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army. In the commander's tent at the center of the camp, the general of the army stood up abruptly and shouted, "What's going on? Where did the battle cry come from?" The general, who was cultivating, was awakened by the sudden battle cry. Following his shout, a soldier quickly ran into the tent and reported respectfully, "General, it's the prisoners. They're attacking." "What? They dare to attack our camp?" The general's expression changed drastically when he heard that. Without any warning, Zhang Qi was the first to rush into the camp at the same time as the battle cry rang out. Her Dao Sovereign Realm aura soared into the sky. Behind her were Gu Xiu and the other Dao King Realm experts, as well as other Heavenly Chun continent cultivators. As for Xiao Chun, he carried Bai Ruyue on his back and rushed into the enemy's camp with the others. It was impossible for Bai Ruyue to fight. Xiao Chun was well aware of Bai Ruyue's combat strength. Although Bai Ruyue was at the Heaven Realm, in a battle of life and death, Bai Ruyue was probably inferior to an Earth Mirror cultivator. "Mother, hold on tight," Xiao Chun said to Bai Ruyue, who was on his back, with the scarlet edge sword in hand. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Bai Ruyue hugged Xiao Chen tightly. At the same time, the battle had already begun. According to Xiao Chen's request, the group did not continue to fight. They only charged forward, trying to break through the enemy's camp. Soon, the group killed their way into the enemy's mansion. They were surrounded by densely packed soldiers of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. At this time, the general who was in the commander's tent strode out and shouted coldly at Xiao Chun and the others. "Taking them down will be a great achievement. Kill them." With the general's command, the soldiers of the Heavenly Wolf Empire gathered their strength and charged madly at Xiao Chun and the others. Although the cultivations of these soldiers were generally not high, with most of them being at the Earth Clear Mirror realm, there were many of them. In addition, Xiao Chun and the others did not have much time to tangle with them, so the battle became particularly intense. Hearing the general's angry roar, Zhang Qi, who was in the lead, immediately rushed towards the general, intending to kill him first. Everyone knew that to catch bandits, one had to catch the ringleader first. With Zhang Qi's attack, the general's hair stood on end. A super expert in the Tao Master realm was no joke. She was at the same level as Blood Wolf King. With a leap, Zhang Qi arrived in front of the general and slashed out with her sword without holding back. The general wanted to resist Zhang Qi's attack, but unfortunately, he was only at the Dao Transformation realm, so he was naturally no match for Zhang Qi. Zhang Qi killed the general with just one move. Now that the general was dead, the remaining soldiers were naturally in chaos. Xiao Chun and the others also seized this opportunity to charge forward frantically. While carrying his mother, Zhang Jingxiang, on his back, he charged forward with the scarlet edge sword in his hand. It could be said that he killed 10 people with a single step. Blood stained Xiao Chen's clothes. Soldiers constantly rushed toward Xiao Chun, But what greeted them was the 7-foot-long azure sword in Xiao Chen's hand. Bai Ryue's expression was firm, without any hesitation. Lying on Xiao Chen's back and watching Xiao Chen kill the enemies along the way, Bai Ryue did not know why, but a thick mist gradually condensed in her eyes. Xiao Chen had really grown up. However, as he grew up, Bai Ryue also knew that Xiao Chen must have experienced a lot of hardships along the way. Lying on Xiao Chen's back, Bai Ryue only felt incomparably safe. Even though the two of them were surrounded by soldiers of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, Bai Ryue had nothing to be afraid of as long as Xiao Chen was there. Along the way, Xiao Chen and the others quickly broke through the army's defensive line. Seeing this, Xiao Chen shouted without hesitation, "Let's go!" There was no time to stop. They had to enter Mount Mang as soon as possible. Only then would they be able to contend with the hundreds of thousands of soldiers of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Hearing Xiao Chen shout, the group charged forward and quickly disappeared into the night. Xiao Chen and the others had successfully broken through the Heavenly Wolf Empire's defensive line. This news was immediately transmitted to the Blood Wolf King through the sound transmission talisman. In order to capture Xiao Chen, the Blood Wolf King personally came to the front line. Hearing that Xiao Chen and the others had broken through from the west side of the Heavenly Wolf Plains, the Blood Wolf King's face immediately sank. He quickly walked to the map in the tent and stared at the place where Xiao Chen and the others had broken through. This was indeed the weakest point of the entire encirclement. However, this place was in the opposite direction of Hulao Pass. Xiao Chen and the others had broken through from here. Just what? In the beginning, the Blood Wolf King did not realize the intentions of Xiao Chen and the others. However, when he saw the Mang Mountain in the west side of the Heavenly Wolf Plains, he immediately reacted. His eyes seemed to spit fire as he gritted his teeth and said, "Mang Mountain, Mang Mountain. This Mang Mountain is connected to Hulao Pass. These thieves want to enter Mang Mountain." Seeing Mang Mountain, the Blood Wolf King quickly realized Xiao Chen's intentions. After all, he was a veteran general who had fought for most of his life. Naturally, he quickly saw through the clues. Mang Mountain stretched for tens of thousands of miles. It could be said that it spanned across the entire territory of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Moreover, Mang Mountain was covered with tall mountains and winding paths. Once they entered Mang Mountain, Xiao Chen and the others could easily hide. On the other hand, the army of the Heavenly Wolf Empire would not be able to enter Mang Mountain, let alone march through Mang Mountain. Compared to the Heavenly Wolf Plains, it was much more difficult to find Xiao Chen and the others in Mang Mountain. With a bang, the Blood Wolf King fiercely slammed the wooden table in front of him. In an instant, the wooden table shattered. His eyes were overflowing with killing intent as he shouted, "What cunning thieves!" However, do you think you can escape from this king's palm? Even if you enter Mang Mountain, this king will definitely find you one by one. His heart was filled with anger. After he finished speaking, the Blood Wolf King angrily shouted outside the tent, "Go and invite Lang Qing to this king." "Yes." Hearing the Blood Wolf King's shout, a soldier respectfully responded. After his rage, the Blood Wolf King gradually calmed down. Since Xiao Chen and the others had already entered Mang Mountain, sending an army to surround and capture them was obviously not feasible. After all, an army of hundreds of thousands and dozens of people were two completely different concepts. In the continuous Mang Mountain, Xiao Chen and the others were like fish in water. However, for hundreds of thousands of soldiers of the Heavenly Wolf Empire, the continuous Mang Mountain was an insurmountable obstacle. It was impossible for hundreds of thousands of soldiers to advance through Mang Mountain. Therefore, the Blood Wolf King had to change his strategy. In the face of Mang Mountain's obstruction, hundreds of thousands of soldiers were no longer of any use. As such, he could only use the Heavenly Wolf Guards. Fortunately, the Blood Wolf King had a backup plan. He deliberately borrowed the Heavenly Wolf Guards from His Majesty, just in case. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 467. The Blood Wolf King was glad that he had a backup plan, the Sky Wolf Guards. The Celestial Wolf Guard was extremely famous in the Celestial Wolf Empire because they were the personal guards of the Emperor of the Celestial Wolf Empire. Even though there weren't many of them, only a total of 1,000, every single one of them could be said to be an elite amongst elites. It could be said that the Heavenly Wolf Guard was the most elite force in the Heavenly Wolf Empire. No, in order to enter the Heavenly Wolf Guard, one's cultivation had to be at least at the Tao Transformation Realm. Think about it. A Tao Transformation Realm warrior could be a general in other armies, but this was only the standard to enter the Heavenly Wolf Guard. It was precisely because the requirements for the Celestial Wolf Guards were very high that there were not many of them. At the same time, the only person in the entire Celestial Wolf Empire who could mobilize the Celestial Wolf Guards was the Emperor of the Celestial Wolf Empire. They only listened to the Emperor of the Celestial Wolf Empire. Sitting in the commander's tent, a middle-aged man wearing a black martial attire with a wolf head embroidered on the chest of his attire strode into the tent. The middle-aged man cupped his hands and bowed to the Blood Wolf King. "Greetings, Your Highness." This man was Lang Qing, one of the 3 deputy commanders of the Sky Wolf Guards. In order to capture Xiao Chun and the others, the Blood Wolf King had borrowed 300 Sky Wolf Guards from the Emperor. Lang Qing was the leader of the 300 Sky Wolf Guards. The entire Celestial Wolf Guard had a commander and 3 vice commanders. The commander was a Tao sovereign, while the 3 vice commanders were Tao King experts. Facing the Blood Wolf King, Lang Qing didn't show too much respect. Thinking about it, as the vice commander of the Sky Wolf Guard, if it wasn't for His Majesty's order, Lang Qing wouldn't even bother with the Blood Wolf King, even if he was one of the 4 Grand Princes. It was not because of Lang Qing's indifference. The Blood Wolf King knew about the Blood Wolf King's group. He looked at Lang Qing with killing intent and went straight to the point. "I just received news that the thieves have broken through the encirclement from the west. I'm afraid that they have already entered Mount Mang. It's difficult for the army to mobilize in Mount Mang, so I can only ask you to take action." The Blood Wolf King was straightforward and directly stated the purpose of summoning Lang Qing. Hearing this, Lang Qing nodded slightly and said in an extremely cold voice, "As per your orders, the Blood Wolf King will move out immediately." Without waiting for the Blood Wolf King's reply, Lang Qing turned around and was about to leave. However, the Blood Wolf King called out first, "Commander Lang Qing, you must not hurt the madam." The madam that the Blood Wolf King was referring to was naturally by Ruyue. Upon hearing these words, Lang Qing's footsteps paused. With his back facing the Blood Wolf King, he nodded slightly and strode out of the commander's tent. Seeing Lang Qing leave, the killing intent in the Blood Wolf King's eyes did not lessen. He had already decided that he would personally enter the Mang Mountain. This time, the bandits had kidnapped by Ruyue. The Blood Wolf King could only personally grind the bones of these bandits into dust to vent the hatred in his heart. Just as the Blood Wolf King made his decision, Lang Qing quickly gathered the Heavenly Wolf Guards after leaving the Blood Wolf King's residence. The 300 Heavenly Wolf Guards were all wearing black martial attire, with a terrifying wolf head embroidered on the chest. Every one of their faces was expressionless. There was no joy or sadness on their faces. There was only a deep indifference towards life. Just 300 people standing together, but the aura they emitted had already surpassed that of 1,000 soldiers. This was the Heavenly Wolf Empire's most elite army, the Heavenly Wolf Guards. Someone once said that to surround and annihilate 1,000 Heavenly Wolf Guards, one would need at least 1,000,000 soldiers. One could imagine how terrifying the battle strength of 1,000 Heavenly Wolf Guards was. They were the sharpest blade in the hands of the Emperor of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. Let's go to the Mang Mountain. Looking at the 300 Heavenly Wolf Guards, Lang Qing indifferently said. Hearing this, the 300 Heavenly Wolf Guards simultaneously soared into the sky. Their figures instantly disappeared into the night as they rushed towards the Mang Mountain. Their actions were swift and decisive. Just as the 300 Heavenly Wolf Guards were dispatched, Xiao Chun and the rest had also successfully entered the Mang Mountain. At this point, everyone secretly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as they entered the Mang Mountain, the hundreds of thousands of soldiers of the Heavenly Wolf Empire would not be of much use. Slowing down, everyone successively swallowed healing elixirs. Due to the lack of time, everyone had naturally fought crazily. Now that they were able to relax, many of them were injured. Fortunately, no one had died. Following the predetermined route, they walked towards the depths of the Mang Mountain. At this point, Xiao Chen's heart gradually relaxed. After traveling for an entire night, the next morning, everyone stopped by a small stream to rest. Sitting side by side with Bai Ryue, they looked at Xiao Chun, whose face was covered in blood. Bai Ryue's movements were gentle as she wiped the blood off his face. "Young master, now that we have entered the Mang Mountain, I believe that the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army will no longer be able to pursue us." Taking large strides towards Xiao Chun, Gu Xiu secretly relaxed and said. Hearing Gu Xiu's words, Xiao Chun said with a grave expression, "We still cannot be careless. Although it is difficult for the army to force their way through the Mang Mountain, the strength of the Heavenly Wolf Empire cannot be underestimated." Before successfully leaving the Heavenly Wolf Empire's territory, Xiao Chun did not dare to be careless. Moreover, he did not know how to put it. In any case, there was an indescribable feeling in Xiao Chen's heart. This feeling was very uncomfortable. After resting for about an hour, everyone continued on their journey. They had to pass through the Mang Mountain to reach the Hulao Pass. The distance was almost doubled. However, there was no other way. If they wanted to reach the Hulao Pass, this was the only way. Along the way, just as Xiao Chun and the rest continued on their journey, the 300 Heavenly Wolf Guards led by Lang Qing also arrived at the camp where Xiao Chun and the rest had broken through last night. Seeing the arrival of the Heavenly Wolf Guards, the soldiers all revealed fear. However, Lang Qing said indifferently, "How did the thieves enter the Mang Mountain?" Under the lead of the soldiers, Lang Qing arrived at the place where Xiao Chun and the rest had entered the Mang Mountain. After looking around, Lang Qing led the 300 Heavenly Wolf Guards into the Mang Mountain. The 300 Heavenly Wolf Guards could not be mentioned in the same breath as an ordinary army. They had all undergone extremely strict training. Not only were their battle prowess great, but their tracking abilities were also first-rate. Along the way, Lang Qing led them deeper and deeper into the Mang Mountain, following the tracks left behind by Xiao Chun and the rest. Half a day later, Lang Qing arrived by the stream where Xiao Chun and the rest had rested. "The thieves have rested here. From the looks of it, it has been less than a day since they left. Hurry up and catch up to them." After observing by the stream, Lang Qing very quickly confirmed that Xiao Chun and the rest had left less than a day ago. As a result, he immediately gave the order to pursue. The 300 Heavenly Wolf Guards only nodded silently when they heard this. Afterwards, they quickly followed the tracks left behind by Xiao Chun and the rest, begging for a monthly vote, begging for a recommendation. Chapter 468. Xiao Chun didn't know that the Sky Wolf Guards were chasing after them. In fact, he didn't even know about the Sky Wolf Guards' existence. After the Sky Wolf Guards entered Mount Mang, the Blood Wolf King also secretly entered Mount Mang with the two of them. They followed the marks left behind by the Sky Wolf Guards. Of course, this was also the Blood Wolf King's request. They had successfully escaped from the army of hundreds of thousands, but Xiao Chun and the others were now facing the even more terrifying Sky Wolf Guards. Although they were few in number, their strength could not be underestimated. Compared to the pursuit of the Sky Wolf Guards, Xiao Chun and the others were clearly much slower. This couldn't be helped. After a period of fierce battles, everyone was more or less injured. Moreover, they had used up a lot of their spirit force. Along the way, they didn't have enough time to rest, so their condition was naturally not as good as when they were at their peak. Along the way, Xiao Chun carried Bai Ryue on his back. Seeing the sweat on Xiao Chen's forehead, Bai Ryue said with heartache, "Chun-er, how about we rest for a bit?" "It's all right, mother. We need to leave the Heavenly Wolf Empire as soon as possible, Xiaochen replied with a smile when he heard Bai Riyue's words. The mountain path was difficult to walk on, and they couldn't fly. They could only travel on foot, which naturally consumed a lot of spirit force. However, for Xiaochen, no matter how much spirit force he consumed, Xiaochen didn't want Bai Riyue to suffer. So along the way, even though Bai Riyue repeatedly asked him to walk, Xiaochen never agreed and insisted on carrying Bai Riyue. They had traveled for an entire day, but they were still very far from Hulao Pass. At night, just as Xiaochen and the others found a place to rest, Xiaochen suddenly had a bad premonition. This feeling came very suddenly, without any warning. It was as if it was foreshadowing the arrival of some kind of danger. Xiaochen frowned and immediately got up to Zhang Qi and the others. He said to Zhang Qi with a serious expression, "Senior Zhang Qi, I keep feeling that something is wrong." He had a very bad feeling in his heart. Hearing Xiaochen's words, Zhang Qi and the others looked at each other. They didn't find anything strange along the way, so there shouldn't be any danger. They hadn't noticed anyone from a Celestial Wolf Empire pursuing them, so Zhang Qi and the others didn't know how to answer Xiaochen. While they were speaking, Lang Qing slowly walked out from the darkness with a few dozen Celestial Wolf Guards. Not only that, but they had already been surrounded by the Sky Wolf Guards at an unknown time. When they saw Lang Qing, who was dressed in black and had a wolf's head embroidered on his chest, walk out, everyone immediately stood up and looked at Lang Qing and the other 300 Sky Wolf Guards as if they were facing a great enemy. A bunch of rats. You really know how to run, Lang Qing said with an indifferent expression in the face of the furious glares from Xiaochen and the others. Hearing Lang Qing's words, Xiaochen's expression turned abnormally grim. Although they had yet to make a move, he could feel that these 300 Sky Wolf Guards were no weaker than an army of 100,000. The group of black-clothed people before them were clearly incomparable to the ordinary soldiers from before. Every single one of them carried a dense killing intent. Damn it, they caught up so quickly. Guxiu cursed in a low voice at this time. They had only been in Mount Mang for a short day, but they had already been caught up. Ignoring everyone's change in expression, Lang Qing said indifferently again, "Go, take these guys down. Kill everyone except my wife. Kill everyone except Bai Riyue." Hearing Lang Qing's order, the 300 Sky Wolf Guards attacked without hesitation. In response, Xiaochen and the others naturally wouldn't allow themselves to be captured without a fight. They all attacked. First was Zhang Qi. As a super expert of the Dao Sovereign Realm, Zhang Qi's cultivation was the strongest and her battle strength was the highest. At this time, Zhang Qi directly attacked Lang Qing. She could tell that Lang Qing was the leader of this group of Sky Wolf Guards, so Zhang Qi wanted to kill Lang Qing first. In that way, it would be much easier to kill the remaining Sky Wolf Guards without a leader. Lang Qing didn't panic at all when facing Zhang Qi's attack. It was as if he was already prepared. A cold smile appeared on his face as he said, "I've long heard that there's a Dao Sovereign Realm expert among these bandits. Unfortunately, you alone aren't enough to kill me." As he spoke, a terrifying aura erupted from Lang Qing's body. This aura seemed to have reached perfection of the Dao King realm. Zhang Qi shouted coldly when she sensed Lang Qing's cultivation. "Oomph, a mere Dao King realm expert. I can crush you with a flip of my hand." Zhang Qi wasn't bragging. Lang Qing's cultivation was merely a perfection of the Dao King realm, in Zhang Qi's opinion. In a one-on-one battle, Zhang Qi was absolutely confident in killing Lang Qing. However, would Lang Qing possibly fight Zhang Qi alone? Obviously, it was impossible. As soon as Zhang Qi finished speaking, Lang Qing led an entire 36 Sky Wolf Guards into an intense battle with Zhang Qi. 37 of them besieged Zhang Qi. Moreover, they quickly formed a battle formation under Lang Qing's lead. He'd already witnessed a battle formation in the Moonless Empire's imperial capital. However, compared to the battle formations of the Battle Dragon Camp, Tiger Camp, and Venom Python Camp, the battle formation possessed by the Sky Wolf Guards was clearly superior and even more powerful. With Lang Qing at the peak of the Tao King realm as the center of the battle formation, Lang Qing and the others actually managed to stop Zhang Qi by relying on his battle position. Moreover, based on the intense battle between them, Zhang Qi was actually unable to do anything to Lang Qing and the others. "Old bastard, you want to deal with my Sky Wolf Guards by yourself? All of you will die today." Lang Qing shouted coldly as he fought. By relying on his battle position, Lang Qing led the 36 Sky Wolf Guards and successfully stopped Zhang Qi. Zhang Qi being stopped was not good news for Xiao Chun. At the same time, Gu Xiao and the other 2 Tao Kings were all stopped by the battle formation formed by the Sky Wolf Guards. Apart from Lang Qing, who was a commander at the peak of the Tao King realm, the other members of the Sky Wolf Guards were all at the transformation realm. They used around 100 people to stop Zhang Qi, Gu Xiao, and the other Tao Kings. The remaining Sky Wolf Guards charged straight towards Xiao Chun and the others. They had never expected the Sky Wolf Guards to be so powerful. Zhang Qi and the others had been completely stopped, so it was clearly impossible for the remaining people to deal with over 100 Sky Wolf Guards. They were not a match for the 300 Sky Wolf Guards at all. Xiao Chun immediately made a decision when he saw the scene before him. He shouted loudly to the others, "Senior Zhang Qi, the 4 of you keep them busy. Everyone else, split up. Run if you can and head straight to Hulao Pass." It was impossible to fight them head-on, or all of them would die here. As a result, Xiao Chun decided to flee at the first possible moment. Moreover, they had to split up. Only then would they have a chance at survival. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. Chapter 469. He didn't expect the Heavenly Wolf Empire to have such a powerful army. There were only 300 Heavenly Wolf Guards, but their combat strength was definitely not inferior to an army of 100,000. In the face of Xiao Chen's angry roar, everyone first looked at each other, then fled in all directions. At the same time, Xiao Chun also came to Bai Ryue's side, grabbed her, and rushed into the forest. He did not even think about going over to fight with these Celestial Wolf Guards. Xiao Chun was only a Tao Querying Realm Cultivator, and any random member of the Celestial Wolf Guard was a Tao Transformation Realm Cultivator. There was no way he could win, so Xiao Chen's first reaction was to run. Under Xiao Chen's command, everyone fled in all directions. But at the same time, several Tao Transformation Realm experts of the Heavenly Chun continent took the initiative to come to Xiao Chen's side. Obviously, these people wanted to protect Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun knew what these people were thinking, but he still shouted, "Let's split up. Otherwise, none of us will be able to leave." "But young master," hearing Xiao Chen's words, the Tao Transformation Realm experts hesitated. Xiao Chen's cultivation was too low, and Bai Ryue had almost no combat strength. So these Tao Transformation Realm experts had already decided that even if they had to sacrifice themselves, they would buy time for Xiao Chun to escape. Therefore, they followed Xiao Chun closely to protect the safety of Xiao Chun and his mother. Knowing that these guys were planning to sacrifice their lives to protect him, Xiao Chun really couldn't accept this. From the beginning to the end, Xiao Chun had never thought of sacrificing anyone, let alone using the lives of his own people in exchange for his own safety. Because of this, Xiao Chun told everyone to split up and flee. Otherwise, Xiao Chun could have let everyone do their best to resist the Heavenly Wolf Guards for a while he took his mother and escaped alone. This way, Xiao Chun's chances of survival would be higher, but Xiao Chun obviously wouldn't do such a thing. Because of this, after knowing these people's thoughts, Xiao Chun shouted without holding back, "Cut the crap and split up. You must reach Hulao Pass alive. Let's go." After forcing these people to retreat, hearing Xiao Chen's words, and seeing Xiao Chen's determined expression, these Tao Transformation Realm experts wanted to say something, but in the end, they didn't say anything. They could only sigh helplessly and then split up and rushed into the forest. Aside from Zhang Qi, Gu Xiao, and the other 3, the other Heavenly Chun continent cultivators all fled in all directions. Although there were quite a few people who wanted to protect Xiao Chun, they were all forced back by Xiao Chun. Using the lives of others to exchange for his own life was something Xiao Chun couldn't do. Even if he was saved in the end, Xiao Chun wouldn't forgive himself. With his mother on his back, Xiao Chun frantically sent messages in the forest. During this time, Xiao Chun had already used a talisman to increase his speed. At the same time, he swallowed several pills in order to shake off the heavenly wolf guard behind him as soon as possible. He had already raised his speed to the limit, but there were still several heavenly wolf guards chasing after him. Aside from the hundreds of heavenly wolf guards that Zhang Qi and the others were holding back, nearly half of the heavenly wolf guards were chasing after them. Behind Xiao Chun, there were 3 heavenly wolf guards chasing after him. This was because Xiao Chun had taken advantage of the chaos to shake off more than 10 heavenly wolf guards. Otherwise, there would be even more heavenly wolf guards chasing after him. Xiao Chun tightly clenched his teeth. At this moment, he didn't dare to relax in the slightest. Every one of these heavenly wolf guards had the cultivation of the Tao transformation realm. Once they caught up, even if there was only one of them, Xiao Chun wouldn't be able to deal with it. Moreover, everyone was already scattered. Even if Xiao Chun wanted to ask for help, no one could help him. Such a crazy chase naturally consumed a lot of Xiao Chun's energy. Seeing Xiao Chun's face becoming paler and paler, Bai Riyue on his back cried out with heartache. "Chun'er." Xiao Chun forced a smile when he heard Bai Riyue's words. "Don't worry, mother. It's fine. I'm here for everything." He indicated for Bai Riyue to be at ease. Just as Xiao Chun and the others were frantically fleeing, Zhang Qi, Gu Xiu, and the others all went berserk as well. At this moment, they were unable to worry about Xiao Chun and the others. The only thing they could do was to hold back as many heavenly wolf guards as possible. As a result, Zhang Qi and the others were no longer thinking about how to break through the formation. Instead, they were thinking about how to hold back even more heavenly wolf guards and buy more time so that Xiao Chun and the others could have a greater chance of escaping. Their auras had all been raised to the peak. As the 4 of them went berserk, the true 200 heavenly wolf guards were held back by the 4 of them. Of course, Xiao Chun didn't know about this. "Old man, you're already about to die, yet you're still causing so much trouble." Zhang Qi alone was holding back nearly 60 sky wolf guards. Seeing this, Lang Qing unhappily shouted in a cold voice. With so many people held back by Zhang Qi, the number of heavenly wolf guards chasing after Xiao Chun and the others was obviously much fewer. Lang Qing's eyes flashed with intense killing intent as his attacks became more and more vicious. Facing the encirclement of nearly 60 heavenly wolf guards, needless to say, Zhang Qi was under great pressure. In addition, these heavenly wolf guards had mastered the battle formation and were even more powerful. Therefore, even though Zhang Qi was a Tao sovereign expert, she couldn't avoid being injured at this moment. She spat out mouthfuls of blood, but she had no intention of retreating at all. This was because only 2 hours had passed since Xiao Chun escaped. It wasn't enough. Zhang Qi had to hold on and at least give Xiao Chun enough time to escape. She was only at the initial stage of the Tao querying realm. She knew that once the heavenly wolf guards caught up, Xiao Chun would have no chance of survival. Therefore, even though Zhang Qi was seriously injured, she absolutely couldn't retreat at this time. With a furious roar, Zhang Qi suddenly punched out and hit a heavenly wolf guard in the chest. A terrifying force exploded, and the heavenly wolf guard's sternum immediately collapsed. He was killed with a single punch. Seeing another heavenly wolf guard die, Zhang Qi had already killed the 8th heavenly wolf guard after 2 hours of fierce fighting. Of course, in order to kill these 8 heavenly wolf guards, Zhang Qi had clearly paid a heavy price. Just as Zhang Qi killed this person, a heavenly wolf guard stood up and fiercely slashed at Zhang Qi's back. A wound so deep that bone could be seen appeared and blood gushed out uncontrollably. After being slashed again, Zhang Qi roared angrily like a mad lion. If this were the heavenly Chan continent, who would have thought that Zhang Qi, who was once the vice pavilion master of the 10,000 weapon pavilion, would actually have such a crazy side? Her hair was disheveled, and her clothes were already dyed red with blood. She really looked like a mad lion surrounded by wolves. However, this mad lion had no intention of retreating at all. "Old man, do you really want to fight to the death with us here?" Lang Qing shouted coldly as he watched Zhang Qi continuously kill the heavenly wolf guards. Chapter 470. Old bastard, are you really going to fight us to the death? Lang Qing shouted coldly as he looked at Zhang Qi. To be honest, Lang Qing didn't want to continue fighting with Zhang Qi. There were two reasons for this. Firstly, even though Zhang Qi was heavily injured, it was still not easy to kill him. After all, Zhang Qi was a Dao Exalt. The Celestial Wolf Guard would definitely suffer heavy losses if they wanted to kill him. Secondly, the Blood Wolf King's orders were to take Bai Ruyue back. Now that Bai Ruyue and Xiao Chun had fled, Lang Qing's main mission was to take Bai Ruyue back. So, it was clearly meaningless to fight Zhang Qi to the death. He had already decided to let Zhang Qi go, but Zhang Qi didn't respond at all when he heard him. He continued to fight fiercely with the Celestial Wolf Guards. Zhang Qi thought to himself as he fought, Soon, as long as I can hold on a little longer, the young master's chances of escaping will be greater. Even though the young master's cultivation isn't high, he's cautious and intelligent. He'll definitely be able to turn the situation around. Originally, Zhang Qi would have been able to break out of the encirclement a long time ago. The reason he had persisted until now was because of Xiao Chun. Zhang Qi's attacks became more and more ruthless as he thought like that. Every time he killed a Celestial Wolf Guard, the pressure on the other cultivators of the Heavenly Chun continent would naturally lessen. Lang Qing's rage erupted like a volcano when he saw that Zhang Qi didn't listen to him at all. He constantly cursed Zhang Qi for not knowing when to stop. He wanted to retreat and pursue Bai Ruyue, but he knew very well that he couldn't leave. Because once he left, the remaining Celestial Wolf Guards wouldn't be able to stop Zhang Qi at all. After all, Lang Qing was the center of the battle formation. It was exactly because of him, a perfection stage Dao King, that the Celestial Wolf Guards were able to fight against Zhang Qi for so long. Otherwise, they would have been defeated by Zhang Qi a long time ago. The battle continued. Zhang Qi grew braver and braver as he fought, but his face grew paler and paler. It wasn't just Zhang Qi. Gu Xiao and the others in the other three battles didn't choose to retreat, just like Zhang Qi. They knew very well that the longer they stayed here, the less pressure Xiao Chun would face. "Young master, you must escape." Gu Xiao murmured softly after killing a Sky Wolf Guard with a single punch. Gu Xiao's relationship with Xiao Chun was somewhat different from the others. For example, although Zhang Qi and the others all obeyed Xiao Chun treated them like seniors. Gu Xiao, on the other hand, was completely Xiao Chun's personal bodyguard, or rather, a little follower. Of course, this was also Gu Xiao's own will. Gu Xiao himself felt very proud to be able to follow Xiao Chun. It was precisely because of this relationship that the relationship between Gu Xiao and Xiao Chun could be said to be much deeper than Zhang Qi and the others. Xiao Chun had long regarded Gu Xiao as his confidant and trusted Gu Xiao 100%. Zhang Qi and the other three fought fiercely for an entire night. It was not until the next morning when Zhang Qi and the others were completely exhausted that they retreated. There was a small interlude during the retreat. In fact, Zhang Qi and Gu Xiao were already prepared to die, but in the end, the two of them were pulled away by another Dao King powerhouse. Surprisingly, this Dao King was the Dao King imprisoned in the Bloodwolf clan. His feelings for Xiao Chun naturally could not be compared to Zhang Qi and the others, so it was already extremely difficult for him to go so far for Xiao Chun. It was probably impossible for him to die for Xiao Chun. So, after persisting for an entire night, the Dao King decisively chose to retreat. At the same time, he berated Zhang Qi and the others. "Leave quickly. Do you really want to die here? If you die, who will protect young Master Xiao Chun in the future?" Don't forget that we still haven't left the territory of the Celestial Wolf Empire. Along with this Tao King realm expert shout, Zhang Qi and the others finally chose to retreat. Just like Xiao Chun and the others, Zhang Qi and the others broke out of the encirclement in different directions. As a result, even if Lang Qing wanted to pursue them, he was unable to do so immediately. After all, the Celestial Wolf Guard had suffered heavy losses throughout the night of battle. Out of the 200 Celestial Wolf Guards that remained, an entire 38 had fallen. Such losses caused Lang Qing's heart to bleed. After all, the price to nurture a qualified Celestial Wolf Guard was extremely huge. It was exactly because of this that even the Celestial Wolf Empire had only nurtured 1,000 Celestial Wolf Guards. Lang Qing's face was gloomy to the extreme. He glanced at the exhausted Celestial Wolf Guards that had experienced an intense night of battle, and he almost gnashed his teeth to pieces. Right at this moment, the Blood Wolf King appeared before Lang Qing as well. He frowned slightly as he gazed at the corpses that covered the ground. Where's the madam? Anyone could discern that an intense battle had occurred here. However, the Blood Wolf King didn't see Bai Ruyue's figure. When faced with the Blood Wolf King's question, Lang Qing gave a simple explanation of what had happened. Lang Qing wasn't afraid of the Blood Wolf King because the Blood Wolf King didn't have the qualifications to punish him, let alone order him around. If it wasn't for the Emperor's orders, Lang Qing wouldn't have interfered at all. The Blood Wolf King was furious when he heard that Bai Riyue had fled, but he couldn't flare up at Lang Qing. Both their expressions were unsightly, and in the end, it was Lang Qing who spoke first. There's no need to worry, Your Highness. There were already Celestial Wolf Guards pursuing them before this. We'll definitely be able to bring the madam back by following the marks. Then I'll have to trouble you, Commander Lang Qing. You must not allow them to leave Mount Mang. Once they leave Mount Mang and enter Tiger Leopard Ridge, it'll be troublesome. That isn't our territory, replied the Blood Wolf King when he heard Lang Qing. After that, Lang Qing led the others in pursuit, whereas the Blood Wolf King's expression was gloomy. After a short while, a Tao King realm expert behind the Blood Wolf King couldn't help but ask, Your Highness, should we pursue them as well? There's no need. We have more important matters to attend to. There can't be any accidents this time. I'll absolutely not allow these bastards to escape. The two of you will make a trip to Tiger Leopard Ridge with me, said the Blood Wolf King coldly. Tiger Leopard Ridge was a chain of mountains on both sides of Hulao Pass. There were countless demonic beasts within it, and its area was practically no smaller than the Celestial Wolf Empire. However, Tiger Leopard Ridge was the world of demonic beasts. Moreover, there were two beast emperors within Tiger Leopard Ridge, and they were the true masters of Tiger Leopard Ridge. It was precisely because of the existence of these two beast emperors that the Moonless Empire and Celestial Wolf Empire feared Tiger Leopard Ridge so much. The Blood Wolf King didn't personally pursue Xiao Chen's group, and instead headed to Tiger Leopard Ridge. There is only a single reason for his decision, and it was to cut off the last path of survival for Xiao Chen's group. Chapter 471. The Blood Wolf King did not personally pursue Xiao Chun and the others because he knew that even though he was a Dao master, it would not be easy to capture Xiao Chun and the others in this vast mountain. Although the Sky Wolf Guards had been dispatched, it did not mean that they could capture Bai Riyue and Xiao Chun. Therefore, the Blood Wolf King brought people to the Tiger Leopard Ridge in order to cut off the last chance of Xiao Chun and the others. There were two beast emperors in the Tiger Leopard Ridge, the Tiger Emperor and the Leopard Emperor. As one of the four great princes of the Sky Wolf Empire, the Blood Wolf King naturally had some connections with them. This time, the Blood Wolf King went to the Tiger Leopard Ridge to ask the Tiger Emperor and the Leopard Emperor to help him capture Xiao Chun and Bai Riyue. Although it was obvious that the Blood Wolf King had to pay a great price for this, otherwise the demonic beasts in the Tiger Leopard Ridge would definitely not take action. But so what? The Blood Wolf King could still afford this price for Bai Riyue. It was already certain that Xiao Chun and the others wanted to escape into the Moonless Empire. Perhaps in their opinion, As long as they escaped from the Mang Mountain, they would be safe. However, the Blood Wolf King wanted to strangle all of Xiao Chen's hopes. Even if they escaped from the Mang Mountain and entered the Tiger Leopard Ridge, the Blood Wolf King still wanted the demonic beast to surround and capture Xiao Chun and Bai Ruyue. The Blood Wolf King appeared to be very steady in the pursuit of Bai Ruyue. He did not allow the slightest loophole to exist. Therefore, even if Xiao Chun and the others successfully escaped from the Sky Wolf Guards, they would still have to face the encirclement of the demonic beasts after entering the Tiger Leopard Ridge. Not knowing the Blood Wolf King's plan, Xiao Chun did not have the time to think about these things. After a night of running, Xiao Chun did not know how far he had run. At this time, he found a hidden cave where Xiao Chun and Bai Ruyue hid. An entire night passed, but the Celestial Wolf Guard never gave up. Fortunately, they were lucky enough to find this cave, which allowed them to temporarily avoid disaster. However, this was only temporary. Once those Celestial Wolf Guards discovered that their tracks had disappeared, they would definitely return to search for them. As a result, they couldn't stay here for long. Xiao Chun panted heavily in the cave. After a night of running, even Xiao Chun was exhausted. Seeing Xiao Chen's pale face, Bai Ruyue's heart ached. Bai Ruyue gently wiped the sweat off Xiao Chen's face and called out softly, "Chenera, mother, it's fine. Don't worry." Xiao Chen knew what Bai Ruyue wanted to say. She wanted him to abandon her and escape by himself. However, this was something he absolutely couldn't do. Hence, before Bai Ruyue could say anything, Xiao Chun interrupted her. Seeing that Xiao Chun did not give her a chance to speak, Bai Ruyue hesitated for a moment and finally chose to obediently shut her mouth. She also understood that with Xiao Chen's temper, it was impossible for him to escape by himself. Seizing the time to rest, Xiao Chun stuffed all kinds of healing pills into his mouth like candy. Although he knew that there would be repercussions after consuming such a large amount of pills, Xiao Chun obviously could not care about this right now. Facing the current situation, Xiao Chun had to recover as soon as possible. Only then would he have the strength to continue escaping with his mother. In less than half an hour, after recovering some of his spiritual power, Xiao Chun did not dare to be careless. He got up and carried Bai Ruyue on his back and once again hurried on. Since he already knew that there was an extremely elite team like the Sky Wolf Guard chasing after him, Xiao Chun was extremely careful this time. He would rather slow down a bit to hide or destroy his tracks as much as possible. While carrying Bai Ruyue on his back, he sent a message through the forest. At the same time, the 3 Sky Wolf Guards who were responsible for chasing after Xiao Chen last night discovered that Xiao Chen's tracks had completely disappeared after chasing for more than 10 miles. The 3 of them quickly reacted. "Damn it, that kid must have hidden. Let's go back and look for him." No matter how careful a person was, it was impossible for them to completely cover their tracks while fleeing. As a result, the 3 Celestial Wolf Guards were very quickly certain that Xiao Chun had hidden himself along the way. It was laughable that the 3 of them had chased him for over 10 kilometers. Along the way, the 3 of them searched. Sure enough, the 3 of them quickly discovered the cave Xiao Chun had hidden in. Although the cave was extremely well hidden, under the deliberate search of the 3 Sky Wolf Guards, they were naturally able to find it. After entering the cave, they discovered traces of someone staying here before. Their faces sank as they spoke coldly. "That kid sure is cunning. He actually found such a well-hidden place to hide. Even we were tricked by him. Looks like we really can't underestimate that kid. That kid has already left. We can only split up. Only like that can we find Xiao Chun as quickly as possible." Because Xiao Chun was extremely careful this time, especially when he left the cave, Xiao Chun used a very long time to completely cover up his tracks. As a result, the 3 Sky Wolf Guards had no idea which direction Xiao Chun had run in. Since they didn't know the direction of their pursuit, the 3 of them could only choose to split up. They were certain that Xiao Chun wouldn't run in that direction, because that would only lead him into the heart of the Sky Wolf Empire again. After eliminating one direction, there were only 3 other directions left. The 3 of them split up and continued their pursuit. The three Sky Wolf Guards moved very quickly. Moreover, they paid extremely close attention to the traces Xiao Chun had left behind. Several hours later, one of the Sky Wolf Guards finally found the traces Xiao Chun had left behind. That kid actually ran in this direction. To have such a meticulous mind at such a young age, he's not simple at all, the Sky Wolf Guard thought to himself when he found the traces. Even though Xiao Chun was young, the Sky Wolf Guard had no choice but to admit that Xiao Chun was definitely the most troublesome enemy he had ever encountered. Even many experts of the older generation didn't have Xiao Chun's meticulous mind and unswerving determination. If it was anyone else, even if they were Dao Confirmation Realm cultivators or Dao Transformation Realm cultivators, they wouldn't be able to do what Xiao Chun had done after a night of running. Completely putting away his contempt for Xiao Chun, the Sky Wolf Guard quickly chased after Xiao Chun. Just as the Sky Wolf Guard was chasing after them, Xiao Chun, who was carrying Zhang Jingxiang on his back, was thinking of a crazy plan the entire time. Why was Xiao Chun's plan said to be crazy? The reason was very simple. Xiao Chun wanted to kill the pursuing Sky Wolf Guard. In other words, Xiao Chun wanted to use his Dao Querying Realm cultivation to kill a Dao Transformation Realm cultivator. If others knew about this, they would all say that Xiao Chun was crazy. The difference between the Dao Querying Realm and the Dao Transformation Realm was already the difference of two major realms. For a Dao Querying Realm cultivator to kill a Dao Transformation Realm cultivator, this was absolutely a fool's dream. Chapter 472. This idea in Xiao Chun's mind was no longer crazy, but deranged. However, Xiao Chun was also helpless. He didn't want to fight to the death with a Dao Transformation Realm cultivator, but there was no other way. If he didn't do this, he and his mother wouldn't be able to survive. As soon as he left the cave, Xiao Chun knew that the three Sky Wolf Guards chasing after him would be able to find that cave in a short amount of time. The reason why he was able to erase all of the traces around the cave was also because Xiao Chun guessed that the three Sky Wolf Guards would split up to chase after him, because this was the only choice. Xiao Chun had already guessed all of this. At the same time, he also expected that one of the Sky Wolf Guards would definitely catch up to him. This was because a Dao Transformation Realm cultivator was clearly faster than him. Not to mention that Xiao Chun was carrying his mother, by Ryue. They would be caught up sooner or later. So, Xiao Chun used a trick to draw away the other two Sky Wolf Guards. This way, he only needed to face one Sky Wolf Guard, and the pressure instantly decreased by a lot. However, this was only relative. If he wanted to truly escape, he had to find a way to get rid of this Sky Wolf Guard. Otherwise, he would catch up sooner or later. At the same time, even more Sky Wolf Guards would come after hearing the news. He had to fight. If he didn't fight, he would die. So even though he knew this was a deranged idea, Xiao Chun had no other choice. Only by killing the Sky Wolf Guard would Xiao Chun and by Ryue have enough time to escape. His eyes were filled with determination. Even though he was facing a Dao Transformation Realm cultivator with his Dao Querying Realm cultivation, Xiao Chun was still fearless. He madly ran until he finally found a secret hiding place. Xiao Chun, put down by Ryue, and deliberately said with a calm expression, "Mother, you must be tired after running for so long. Rest here for a bit. I'll go get some water. Mother, remember not to move." He didn't tell Bai Ryue that he was going to kill that Sky Wolf Guard. Telling her would only make her worry for nothing. However, Xiao Chun had clearly overlooked a problem. As the saying goes, no one knows a son better than his mother. Although Xiao Chun concealed it very well, Bai Ryue still saw through his thoughts with a single glance. Holding Xiao Chun's hand, Bai Ryue gently said, "Chunner, do you really want to go?" When Bai Ryue said this, Xiao Chun naturally knew that she had seen through his thoughts. He no longer hid it and nodded solemnly. "We have to go. If we don't go, Mother and I won't be able to escape. If that's the case, I'd rather take a gamble." She clearly knew what Xiao Chun would face if he left. An enemy 2 realms higher than him. This was practically suicide. However, after hearing Xiao Chun's words, Bai Ryue also knew that Xiao Chun had a reason not to go. If there was any other way, Xiao Chun definitely wouldn't face a Dao Transformation Realm cultivator head-on. Mother and son looked at each other. After a moment of silence, Ryua said, China, without you, Mother definitely won't be able to survive. So, promise Mother that you'll come back alive. Mother, don't worry. I won't die so easily. Mother, rest here now. Before I come back, Mother must not move around. Xiao Chun replied. With that, Xiao Chun didn't hesitate any longer. He didn't even wait for Bai Ruyue's reply. Xiao Chun resolutely turned around and left. Looking at Xiao Chun's departing figure, Bai Ruyue's eyes were already filled with tears. Xiao Chun naturally wouldn't die so easily, because if he died, then his mother would definitely have no chance of surviving. The best outcome would be her being captured by the Sky Wolf Guard again. However, without Xiao Chun, would Bai Ruyue continue to live? Obviously not. So, even if there was only a trace of hope, Xiao Chun would do his best. He slowly walked to the path he had just taken. He had already observed that this was a very good place for an ambush. It was surrounded by dense forest and shrubs. Not only was it easy to hide, but it was also easy to set up a trap. If he wanted to kill a Dao Transformation Realm expert, Xiao Chun naturally couldn't go head-to-head with him, let alone have a fair fight. Xiao Chun wanted to use underhanded means. It would be best if he could directly kill this Sky Wolf Guard. Even if he couldn't kill him, he had to heavily injure him. Only in this way would Xiao Chun have a chance of success. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Chun carefully set up a trap in the surroundings. Against the Dao Transformation Realm cultivator, ordinary traps were naturally useless. So, Xiao Chun's traps were mostly talisman formations. The only thing worth rejoicing over was that Lan Xiao had taught Xiao Chun how to set up a few talisman formations back in the Heavenly Qin continent. However, these talisman formations were the most ordinary ones, so they weren't difficult to set up. At this very moment, Xiao Chun had completely replaced the low-level talismans with high-level talismans. So, the might of these talisman formations had been forcefully raised by Xiao Chun by over 3 levels. The might of a talisman formation mainly came from 2 things. The first was the talisman formation itself. The higher the level of the talisman formation, the greater its might would naturally be. The second was the talisman formation used to set up the talisman formation. The higher the level of the talisman formation, the greater the might of the talisman formation. These 2 things were the main reasons that affected the might of a talisman formation. Xiao Chun wasn't a talisman formation master, so the number of talisman formations he knew could be counted on one hand. Moreover, they were all the most rudimentary ones. However, the talismans Xiao Chun used to set up these talisman formations had all reached the heaven rank. As a result, their might naturally doubled. After working for 6 to 8 hours, Xiao Chun set up a total of 4 talisman formations here. These 4 talisman formations were actually a single formation, but Xiao Chun had set them up 4 times. As a result, when they were activated at the same time, the 4 layers of talisman formations would stack together, and their might would increase by a lot. He had completely used up all the offensive talismans he had on him, and this was only because of the space ring that Gu Qi had given him before. Otherwise, Xiao Chun really wouldn't have been able to set up these 4 formations. His preparations were complete. After swallowing several healing pills, Xiao Chun hid himself in the nearby bushes. He did his best to hide his presence as he patiently waited for the Sky Wolf Guard to arrive. He was not in a hurry, nor did he dare to relax in the slightest. Even his breathing had become much more subtle. Maintaining this tense state, Xiao Chun waited for over 2 hours before the Sky Wolf Guard finally appeared in his line of sight. He didn't chase after Xiao Chun without thinking. On the contrary, the Sky Wolf Guard was extremely cautious along the way. He followed the tracks that Xiao Chun left behind all the way here. As he watched the Sky Wolf Guard draw closer and closer, Xiao Chun's hands unconsciously clenched tightly. Whether or not he would succeed would depend on whether this Sky Wolf Guard would take the initiative to walk into the range of the talisman formation. If he discovered that there were talisman formations in the surroundings ahead of time, then all his previous efforts would be wasted. Without the might of the talisman formation as a foundation, Xiao Chun wanting to kill a Dao Transformation Realm cultivator was simply a pipe dream. Hurry up and get in, hurry. Xiao Chen's gaze was fixed on this Sky Wolf Guard. As he watched him walk step by step towards the range of the talisman formation, he secretly shouted in his heart. Chapter 473. To Xiao Chun, the most crucial moment for the success of the ambush this time was actually this moment. If this Sky Wolf Guard was able to walk into the range of the talisman formation without noticing, then Xiao Chen's plan would have a chance of success. On the other hand, if this Sky Wolf Guard noticed, then Xiao Chen's ambush could only end in failure. After all, Xiao Chun absolutely didn't dare to confront an uninjured Dao Transformation Realm expert. The difference in cultivation was truly too great. As he watched this Sky Wolf Guard walk towards the talisman formation without blinking, Xiao Chen's heart was already in his throat. At the same time, he began to secretly prepare to activate the talisman formation at any time. It seemed like he didn't discover anything suspicious. This Sky Wolf Guard continued to search forward, and the distance between them grew closer and closer. In the end, this Sky Wolf Guard finally walked into the range of the talisman formation. Many times, no matter how perfect your plan was, whether or not it would succeed in the end still depended on luck. As the saying goes, man proposes and the heavens disposes. However, this time, Xiao Chen's luck didn't seem to be bad. At the very least, this Sky Wolf Guard wasn't on guard in the slightest. When he saw that this Sky Wolf Guard had already arrived at the center of the 4 talisman formations, Xiao Chun didn't hesitate in the slightest and directly activated the formations. For formations were activated at the same time. For a moment, overlapping rings of light rose up from the ground. As if they had sealed off space, they immediately surrounded the Sky Wolf Guard. This sudden change of events caused this Sky Wolf Guard's expression to immediately change greatly, and he unconsciously cried out in alarm. Talisman formations. He completely didn't expect that someone would actually set up talisman formations here, and there were even 4 of them. Without even thinking, this Sky Wolf Guard knew that he'd been tricked. Damn it! He cursed inwardly, but very quickly, this Sky Wolf Guard acutely sensed that these 4 talisman formations were of the lowest level. For a moment, this Sky Wolf Guard secretly let out a sigh of relief. Talisman formations of this level were of no threat to a Dao Transformation Realm cultivator like him at all. Oomph. You want to kill me with mere 4 fierce fire talisman formations? You're simply delusional. Not only did he see through the levels of these 4 talisman formations, he even knew the names of these 4 talisman formations. The ferocious fire charm array was not unfamiliar to any martial artist. Almost all the martial artists who had reached the celestial realm could arrange the ferocious fire charm array, even if they were not charm array masters. This was because the ferocious fire charm array was too simple. At the same time, it was widely spread. Moreover, there was not the slightest difficulty in arranging it. Therefore, any martial artist of the celestial realm and above could arrange the ferocious fire charm array as long as they had a charm in their hands. When he saw that the 4 talisman formations that trapped him were fierce fire talisman formations, this Sky Wolf Guard inwardly let out a sigh of relief. However, this relaxation only lasted for an instant, because as the 4 talisman formations erupted, this Sky Wolf Guard also quickly saw through the clues of the 4 fierce fire talisman formations before him. But when this Sky Wolf Guard sensed that these 4 fierce fire talisman formations were actually set up with Heaven Realm talismans, his face instantly became gloomy. The person who set up these 4 fierce fire talisman formations was definitely a madman, actually using Heaven Realm talismans to set up fierce fire talisman formations. Wasn't this just destroying heavenly treasures? However, it was precisely because of these Heaven Realm talismans that the might of these 4 fierce fire talisman formations was forcefully raised to a terrifying level. From the initial shock to the later rejoicing to the present shock, this Sky Wolf Guard felt as disgusted as if he'd eaten a fly. However, in the blink of an eye, the 4 fierce fire talisman formations had already been completely activated. The scorching flames seemed as if they wanted to burn everything. Deep within the raging flames, this Sky Wolf Guard wanted to break out of the formation at the first possible moment. However, facing the 4 fierce fire talisman formations, it was indeed difficult for him to break out in a short amount of time. Outside the formation, Xiao Chun stared fixedly at this Sky Wolf Guard within the formation. In less than a dozen breaths of time, Xiao Chun saw that a large area of burns had appeared on this person's body. What a joke! How could a fierce fire talisman formation constructed with Heaven Realm talismans be weak? Moreover, this time, in order to ensure that nothing went wrong, Xiao Chun had used up all of his Heaven Realm talismans, not holding anything back. The scorching flames continuously attacked. As this Sky Wolf Guard resisted the cleansing of these flames, he angrily shouted in pain. Damn it! Damn it! He didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. These 4 fierce fire talisman formations had already made this Sky Wolf Guard feel a fatal threat. At this moment, he didn't have any strength left to break through the formation. He could only defend with all his strength, intending to endure the attacks of these 4 fierce fire talisman formations. The power of the talisman formations continuously attacked this Sky Wolf Guard. Talisman after talisman were also madly consumed. As everyone knew, the power of a talisman formation came from the talismans. Once all of the talismans were used up, the formation would collapse on its own. This Sky Wolf Guard knew this, and so did Xiao Chun. He patiently waited for the talisman formations to end. As time passed, the injuries on this Sky Wolf Guard body became heavier and heavier. After an entire quarter of an hour, the 4 fierce fire talisman formations finally exhausted all of their power. The originally raging flames also began to slowly dissipate. The talismans that formed the formation had already turned to ashes. As the power of the talisman formations disappeared, this Sky Wolf Guard's figure also slowly appeared before Xiao Chun. However, only a quarter of an hour had passed, but this Sky Wolf Guard was already heavily injured. Large areas of his body were burned, and his aura was extremely weak. Even though he forcefully endured the attacks of the 4 fierce fire talisman formations in the end, this Sky Wolf Guard could be said to have used up all of his strength. He tightly clenched his teeth, forcefully enduring the intense pain that constantly came from his body. His eyes seemed like they were about to spit fire, filled with awe-inspiring hatred. He had inexplicably been tricked by someone, and he had even almost lost his life. The hatred in this Sky Wolf Guard's heart could be imagined. However, before he could rest at all, Xiao Chun, who had been hiding nearby the entire time, revealed a dense killing intent at this moment. In the end, the fierce fire talisman formation was still unable to directly kill the Sky Wolf Guard. However, it had succeeded in heavily injuring him. Like this, he had reached the point where he was facing him. Right now, this Sky Wolf Guard was at his weakest. This was the best opportunity to kill him. Without the slightest hesitation, Xiao Chun directly drew the Ink Dragon Sword, directly using the Tiger Rush and Dragon Transformation. He fiercely charged out, and the Ink Dragon Sword stabbed toward the Sky Wolf Guard's chest like lightning. Everything happened so suddenly. Sensing Xiao Chun's attack, the Sky Wolf Guard's expression suddenly changed greatly. Then he almost instinctively dodged to the side. Chapter 474. Xiao Chun's sudden outburst made the Celestial Wolf Guard's hair stand on end. At the same time, in order to achieve a one-hit kill, Xiao Chun used everything he had. Not only did he take out the Black Dragon Sword, he even used a secret technique, Dragon Transformation. His aura instantly broke through to the peak of the Tao Querying Realm. Under normal circumstances, Xiao Chun would obviously not use the supreme grade heavenly weapon, the Ink Dragon Sword. This was because using the Ink Dragon Sword consumed too much energy. Even though Xiao Chun had broken through to the Tao Querying Realm, he could not last long if he used the Ink Dragon Sword at full strength. Everything was for a one-hit kill. Otherwise, If he entered a stalemate with the Celestial Wolf Guard, it would be even more troublesome. One couldn't let down their guard just because the Celestial Wolf Guard was heavily injured. No matter what, he was still a Tao Querying Realm expert, while Shao Chun was only at the Tao Querying Realm. The sure kill sword slashed out, but the result disappointed Shao Chun. At the critical moment, the Celestial Wolf Guard instinctively leaned to the side, successfully avoiding his vitals. In the end, Shao Chun's strike wasn't able to kill him. It only cut off his left arm at the shoulder. With his left arm cut off, the Celestial Wolf Guard couldn't help but cry out in pain. Then, he glared fiercely at Shao Chun. For a moment, his eyes were filled with rage as he shouted with overflowing killing intent. "It's you. It really is you. Little bastard, you're courting death." He had already guessed that the person who set up these traps was Shao Chun. Now it seemed that it was indeed so. After hearing the Celestial Wolf Guard's words, Shao Chun didn't stop at all. Although he couldn't kill him with a single strike, he succeeded in adding to his injuries. The sword in his hand didn't stop. It changed direction and swept out. He didn't hold back in the slightest. When he saw this, a hint of chestnut color flashed through the Sky Wolf Guard's eyes. He clenched his right fist tightly and threw out a punch. Then, Shao Chun's sword successfully cut open a wound in the Sky Wolf Guard's abdomen. But he also took the punch head-on. It could be said that both sides had suffered heavy injuries. The sound of bones cracking could be heard as a punch landed on Shao Chun's chest. Shao Chun's entire body was sent flying. After flying for more than 10 meters, Shao Chun suddenly fell to the ground. He had still somewhat underestimated a Tao Transformation Realm expert. Although this Sky Wolf Guard's injuries could be said to be incomparably severe, it was still not an easy task to kill him. Both sides were injured. Struggling to his feet, Shao Chun and the Sky Wolf Guard looked at each other. Extremely dense, killing intent could be seen in their eyes. Both of them wanted to kill the other. "Little bastard, you're courting death." After being ambushed by a Tao Querying Realm ant, and even having one of his arms cut off, the fury in the Sky Wolf Guard's heart could be imagined. However, Shao Chun didn't reply. He tightly gripped the ink dragon sword in his hand and forcefully endured the pain in his chest. He coldly shouted, "Die." Then he took the initiative to attack the Sky Wolf Guard. He couldn't be tangled up with this person for too long. He had to end the battle quickly. Seeing that Shao Chun actually dared to take the initiative to attack, the Sky Wolf Guard roared in fury. "Little bastard, if you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish today." The two of them once again clashed. Facing an enemy 2 realms higher than him, Shao Chun showed no fear at all. As they fought, various killing moves emerged one after another. Around 100 breaths later, Shao Chun and the Sky Wolf Guard were both heavily injured. However, even so, the two of them still had no intention of stopping. Mouthful after mouthful of blood sprayed out from his mouth. Although the Sky Wolf Guard was heavily injured and on the verge of death, his final struggle still dealt a heavy blow to Shao Chun. Coupled with the fact that Shao Chun wanted to end the battle as soon as possible, when he attacked, he was basically trading injury for life. Seeing the Sky Wolf Guard throw out another punch, Shao Chun actually didn't dodge. He prepared to receive the punch. At the same time, the ink dragon sword in his hand directly stabbed out, instantly piercing through the Sky Wolf Guard's chest. However, at the same time that Shao Chun's sword pierced through the Sky Wolf Guard's chest, the Sky Wolf Guard's fist viciously struck Shao Chun's left shoulder. With a crack, Shao Chun's entire left shoulder bone directly shattered, and his entire left arm drooped powerlessly. Another exchange of injury for injury. This time, the two of them collapsed to the ground with heavy injuries. Their entire left arm could no longer be used, and even moving it was very difficult. Both of them collapsed to the ground with heavy injuries. Up until now, Shao Chun's plan seemed to have gone awry. He had still underestimated the battle prowess of a Tao transformation expert. Thinking about it, it made sense. Killing a Tao transformation expert as a Tao querying cultivator was originally something impossible. To be able to fight to such an extent with the Sky Wolf Guard was already not easy for Shao Chun. The two of them lay powerlessly on the ground. They looked coldly at Xiao Chun, who lay not far from them. A trace of blood hung from the corner of their mouths. Although they were heavily injured, a cold smile flashed through their eyes. The Sky Wolf Guard laughed sinisterly. "Little bastard, the one who dies in the end is still you. Before long, the other Sky Wolf Guards will arrive. At that time, I'll definitely make you beg for death." It was obvious that Xiao Chen no longer had the strength to continue fighting. It was even impossible for him to stand up again. As time passed, the other Sky Wolf Guards would definitely find this place. At that time, it would be the time of Xiao Chen's death. It was as if he had already won. However, just as the Celestial Wolf Guard finished speaking, an unexpected scene occurred. Xiao Chen was actually struggling to stand up. With the ink dragon sword in hand, after struggling for a while, Xiao Chen finally stood up shakily. Then, dragging his bloody body, he walked step by step towards the Sky Wolf Guard. Seeing Xiao Chen constantly approaching, the Sky Wolf Guard's expression changed greatly. He said in disbelief, "You?" Step by step, he arrived in front of the Sky Wolf Guard. Seeing this, the Sky Wolf Guard also struggled to stand up, but in the end, he discovered that he didn't have any extra strength left. Like a heavily injured beast, his breathing was hurried and his aura unstable. However, Xiao Chen still forced himself to walk step by step to the front of the Sky King Guard. He looked down at him from above and slowly raised the ink dragon sword in his hand. You, how is this possible?" He was very surprised at how Xiao Chen could still stand up. After all, after the fierce battle just now, Xiao Chen was definitely heavily injured by him. Facing the Sky Wolf Guard's shock, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "If you don't die, my mother and I will definitely die." He absolutely couldn't let Bai Ruyue fall into the Blood Wolf King's hands again. It was precisely because of this obsession that Xiao Chen was able to hold on until now. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Chen directly stabbed with his sword. This time, there was no surprise. The sharp ink dragon sword instantly pierced through the Sky Wolf Guard's heart. Immediately, the Sky Wolf Guard died. Chapter 475. After successfully killing the Sky Wolf Guard, Xiao Chen felt as if his body was about to fall apart. After swallowing several healing pills, Xiao Chen struggled to walk towards the place where Bai Ruyue was hiding. He didn't dare to stay here for too long, because Xiao Chen knew that it wouldn't be long before the other Sky Wolf Guard arrived. He had to take his mother to a safe place before then and completely shake off the pursuit of the Sky Wolf Guards. Because of this, even though Xiao Chen was seriously injured, he didn't have time to waste. Dragging his heavily injured body, his entire left arm still didn't have the slightest bit of strength. It hung down powerlessly. Worried about Bai Ruyue's safety, Xiao Chen didn't stop and directly went to the place where Bai Ruyue was hiding. Remembering Xiao Chen's instructions before he left, Bai Ruyue didn't leave the place even though she was extremely worried. It wasn't until Xiao Chen appeared in front of her that Bai Ruyue hurriedly went forward and hugged Xiao Chen. Knowing that Xiao Chen had lost the Sky Wolf Guard who was chasing after them, Bai Ruyue couldn't calm down at all when she thought of Xiao Chen wanting to kill a Dao Transformation Realm Cultivator with a Dao Querying Realm Cultivation. She was afraid that Xiao Chen would never return. In fact, Bai Ruyue had already decided that if something happened to Xiao Chen, she definitely wouldn't be able to live. She had been anxiously waiting for Xiao Chen's appearance. Now that she finally saw Xiao Chen, Bai Ruyue's heart was completely at ease. However, when she saw Xiao Chen's heavily injured body, Bai Ruyue couldn't help but feel pain. Xiao Chen's current injuries made Bai Ruyue tremble in fear. Just based on these injuries, it wasn't difficult to determine what kind of battle Xiao Chen had just experienced. "Chen, are you all right?" Mom, Bai Ruyue said with heartache while checking Xiao Chen's body. Looking at the tearful Bai Ruyue, Xiao Chen forced a smile and said, "Mother, it's all right. Didn't I come back alive? It's all right, Mother." In the face of Xiao Chen's consolation, Bai Ruyue forcefully held back the tears in her eyes and nodded heavily. Immediately after, she turned around and bowed. Upon seeing this, Xiao Chun asked in confusion, "Mother, what are you doing?" "Of course Mother will carry you. Can you still travel like this?" Bai Ryue said firmly when she saw Xiao Chen's puzzled expression. Not only Xiao Chun, but Bai Ryue also knew that the mother and son weren't safe yet. They didn't have much time to rest, so Bai Ryue planned to carry Xiao Chun on her back and continue their journey. Upon seeing this, Xiao Chun was slightly taken aback, but immediately said with some embarrassment, "Mother, I can walk on my own. You don't have to carry me, What are you talking about? Haven't I carried you on my back since you were young? Don't force yourself. Quickly come up." Seeing that Xiao Chun was unwilling, Bai Ryue immediately shouted. Without any explanation, Bai Ryue carried Xiao Chun and ran forward. Lying on Bai Ryue's back, the familiar fragrance made Xiao Chun feel inexplicably at ease. The innate fragrance on Bai Ryue's body was very familiar to Xiao Chun. Unconsciously, the memories of his childhood inexplicably surfaced in his mind. He vaguely remembered that when he was young, he liked to lie on Bai Ryue's back. No matter where he went, he wanted his mother to carry him. However, as he slowly grew up, he didn't let his mother carry him anymore. Later on, he went out to cultivate and enter the Eastern Sword Pavilion. As a result, he spent even less time with his mother. He couldn't help but look at Bai Ryue. Although Xiao Chun wasn't even 30 years old, he couldn't help but sigh at how time passed so quickly. It was as if yesterday he was still a shocking follower behind his mother, but today he had already grown up and even became the leader of the heavenly Qin continent's 10 prides. He had grown up. At the same time, Xiao Chun became more and more determined to protect his parents in this life. No matter what price he had to pay, he had to raise his parents' cultivation. It was hard to imagine how he would feel if Bai Ryue and Xiao Qing were to leave him one day. It was said that birth, old age, illness, and death were the laws of heaven and earth. However, weren't cultivators going against the heavens? Since he wanted to go against the heavens, why couldn't his parents do the same? His determination to protect his parents became more and more firm. At the same time, Bai Ryue's forehead was covered in sweat as she ran. Seeing this, Xiao Chun didn't care that his clothes were already stained with blood. He reached out and gently wiped the sweat off Bai Ryue's forehead. Feeling Xiao Chun's action, Bai Ryue didn't say anything and only smiled. Bai Ryue had seen Xiao Chun's growth and was proud of him. To have such a son was the proudest thing in Bai Ryue's life. Who would have thought that in such a life and death situation, Xiao Chun would actually feel the long-awaited warmth on Bai Ryue's back? It was an innate warmth that came from a mother's embrace. Regardless of whether a person was a cultivator or an ordinary person, they all felt the same towards their mother. Even though Xiao Chun's cultivation far surpassed Bai Ryue's, in Xiao Chun's heart, Bai Ryue's embrace would always be his warmest harbor. After running for an entire day, Xiao Chun and Bai Ryue finally stopped to rest. After running for an entire day and night, Bai Ryue was also quite tired. At this moment, after swallowing a healing pill, she closed her eyes and adjusted her breathing. As for Xiao Chun, the injuries on his body were even more severe. Therefore, taking advantage of this rare time to rest, Xiao Chun naturally began to heal his injuries wholeheartedly. In a day's time, the mother and son had already run very far. Moreover, the Sky Wolf Guard that had chased them before had already been eliminated by Xiao Chun. In addition, along the way, under Xiao Chun's command, Bai Ryue had also carefully erased all traces of the two of them. Therefore, at this very moment, the Sky Wolf Guard would definitely not be able to find the two of them in a short amount of time. After all, after losing all traces of them in the boundless mountains, wanting to find the two of them was practically no different from looking for a needle in a haystack. After resting for around 4 hours, Xiao Chun was the first to open his eyes. Looking at the time, it was about time to set off. This time, Xiao Chun took the initiative to walk before Bai Ryue and crouched down. Seeing this, just as Bai Ryue was about to speak, Xiao Chun spoke first. "Mother, let your son carry you in the future. Your son has already grown up." He didn't give Bai Ryue a chance to refuse at all. In addition, after a day of rest, Although Xiao Qin's injuries hadn't completely healed, there was no problem for him to travel. It was just that his speed was much slower than when he was at his peak. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.